7 o'clock. We can call this meeting to order. My LED clock just picked up the numeral 7 hours. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, everyone. We're pleased to have most of council. We regret Councillor Crothers' absence and wish him well. Today's meeting is being held as a virtual meeting due to the declared emergency. This meeting may be streamed live as well as recorded and published on the Southwest Middlesex YouTube channel. Council, are there any members of council declaring a pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none, we will move to 3 in the agenda. Additions to the agenda, council, are there any? I'll watch your hands. Colin, you're adjusting your glasses, I think, so you're okay there. I'll entertain a motion that the regular agenda of council dated August 25th be accepted as presented. Mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Wilkins, thank you. Seconder. Councillor Bartlett. Discussion. All in favor? Carried. Delegations and presentations are before us. We're very pleased to have Chris Trainey with us tonight. I don't see his name on the screen, but I'm hoping he's here. Jill? Oh, I see it now. Chris, thank you very much for inquiring with Southwest Middlesex to address us. We're very pleased that you extended that invitation to us. We're pleased to have the County of Middlesex engineer with us. Chris comes to speak to us about road safety within Middlesex County. Council, the conversation will migrate towards the intersection we're all concerned about, the Glendon Drive and the Melbourne Road intersection. And of course, as you all know, this is a subject that can have a significant amount of emotion and passion attached to it. And I remind all council that discussions must remain respectful and cognizant of both the county and the municipal's responsibility. Chris, we welcome you to Southwest Middlesex. Approximately 45% of our budget is directed towards county funding. And I will now give you the floor, and we give you a warm welcome, and you can advise council on how some of that money is being spent. Thank you, Chris. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And very happy to see some familiar faces here on screen tonight, and always more than happy to provide an update from a county road perspective. And I'm also here to answer your questions. And I thank you for identifying the Glendon and Melbourne Drive intersection, which we'll talk about in a fair amount of detail, but also to answer your questions about road safety in general and anything else pertaining to county roads and bridges. I'm very happy to provide additional information on many things that we're doing at the county these days that hopefully will improve road safety in general, encourage people to take more options with regards to active transportation, and things we're trying to do to make sure everybody's staying safe during these difficult times with the pandemic. I just wanted to lead off with a couple of pieces of sort of unfortunate news that had been circulating around recently. One that was presented at County Council, and it's a recent report from the OPP that identified that of the collisions that we've seen this year, 84% were due or partly due to careless driving behavior. And the other news was about 57% of all of the fatalities that we've seen across Ontario this year are related to what they call the big four, which is alcohol and drugs, speeding, driver inattention, and failure to wear seatbelts. And really the key message here is that there is an opportunity for us to be better, to operate our vehicles more safely, and to follow the rules of the road. That certainly will help protect us and protect others. The other piece of news that didn't make it on the County Council agenda, but another very recent poll that was conducted by the CAA, was that 55% of drivers who were polled in the survey freely admitted to undertaking or participating in unsafe driving behavior. And 95% of the people who were polled had witnessed others with doing dangerous driving or other types of risky behaviors on the road. So it's really just a reminder, that if you're operating a vehicle, please pay attention. It's one of the riskiest things that we do in our day-to-day lives, and we forget that. But it's very important for us to remember that, we're sort of, steering a dangerous thing down the road, and we have to pay attention to what we're doing at all times, especially around the county. With that, I think I'll get right into the Glendon Drive, Melbourne Road concerns and talk a little bit about some of the successes we've had there, some of the challenges that we've had there, and some of the things that we're looking at moving forward within the future. As council, this council especially knows, and Middlesex County Council and myself was stunned with the fatality involving a young person at the intersection several years ago. We really take all fatalities on our county roads seriously. Unfortunately, that fatality, from the information that we've been provided, was due to a failure to yield where a truck went straight through a stop sign without slowing down. So we of course, focused in on that as an issue. And we included that intersection with two other intersections in the county where we're seeing similar behaviors by drivers, which was simply not recognizing that the stop sign was there. Whether intentionally or unintentionally, it's certainly something that we've had experience with over the years with regards to installation of rumble strips. And in this case, we endeavored to take a new form of rumble strips called an enhanced rumble strip layout, which essentially gives the drivers two chances to be made aware of the upcoming stop condition. So the new layout now includes rumble strips ahead of a stop ahead sign, and then a pause, and then rumble strips ahead of the stop sign. So essentially giving drivers two notifications of the upcoming stop condition. And fortunately, I'm happy to say, the evidence is, since those rumble strips were installed in that new pattern, we have not had a collision at any of the three intersections that would be attributed to someone failing to adhere or see the stop sign. We had collisions, freely admit that, but they are all related to people stopping at the stop sign and then pulling out into the intersection, either trying to beat traffic or because they've been paused for too long, or for whatever the reason, not recognizing or making good judgment with regards to the space between them and oncoming traffic. So it's been a fairly positive experience as far as traffic safety goes. As far as the aggressiveness of those strips, because they were milled strips, they were very aggressive. So when we mill rumble strips in, just by the way and the technology we have to actually mill those physical strips into the asphalt, the strips are deep and they're quite sharp. So we were immediately aware that there was some disturbance to residents in the immediate area. We were hoping to see those strips get worn down over time, which they normally would do when they're rolled in. We weren't seeing that type of performance out of those rumble strips. So we had a significant concern. We addressed that concern several weeks ago, where we actually took those strips out, milled the pavement out, paved in new asphalt, and rolled in rumble strips that are significantly shallower. They are noisy now, but they will wear down much quicker. Anyone who's been familiar with that intersection and many intersections across the county over the years, that intersection has always had rumble strips, but they had been worn down almost to nothing. And that's how those rolled in rumble strips work. They're very aggressive for the first month or two, but they wear in very quickly. And certainly we see a reduction in the amount of noise produced and the aggressiveness of those strips over that time. It's simply because the asphalt is much shallower. The strips themselves are very shallow. So the tips of the strips that cause that vibration and noise get worn down very quickly. The asphalt is fresh, it's still fairly pliable because of the heat of the summer. And when traffic goes over those rumble strips, and we have about 3,000 cars a day on that road traveling over those rumble strips, they will wear down fairly quickly. I have spoken to at least one member of the public, and I have been made aware of people who have had concerns, and we do ask for their patience. And we will continue to review and address, as the mayor will hopefully say, we are committed to safety at this intersection. And we won't rest until we see things continually being improved and different things that we can do there in order to further increase safety at that intersection. I think as well there, I should identify the fact that this is not a one and done at this intersection. We have certainly undertaken other measures there as well. We have increased the stop sign size. we have greatly increased the visibility at this intersection by even just very recently in this month, removing more vegetation along the roadway to provide clear sight distance for vehicles approaching the roadway in all 4 directions. So we've continued to try and improve those visibility factors around this intersection. We have also considered other safety measures, and unfortunately, some of those we weren't able to implement. One that we had hoped to use as an option was an LED illuminated stop sign. And we reviewed some of the things that were happening in Huron County, which would be a very close proximity to this intersection as far as Ontario goes, where they've been using these signs to some medium level of success from the reports that I have heard with regards to helping to reduce collisions at the intersections where they've been installed. We did some additional research, and unfortunately, those signs are not, stop signs are regulatory signs as defined under provincial legislation. So when we modify one of those stop signs, we get into a position where we're essentially not conforming with a regulatory sign that's prescribed under the Highway Traffic Act. So we don't have the ability to put those signs in without accepting some significant liability risk. And we've also heard some concerns from the OPP about their ability to actually enforce a stop sign that's been modified from that Highway Traffic Act standard. We are endeavoring through our efforts here in Middlesex County, but also through Ontario Good Roads Association, to get the province to modify the legislation to allow for those signs to be installed on roads across Ontario. And we're certainly hoping that that's another thing that we can add to our safety toolbox to consider installing, not just here, but in other locations across the county where we feel those types of signs will be effective. I know we've also had some conversations over the years about intersection flashers. Our experience at the county has been, in my 20 years with the county, where intersection flashers are removed, we have seen a reduction in the number of serious and fatal collisions. We have some evidence to show that there is driver confusion about what a flashing light at an intersection actually means. And unfortunately, many drivers incorrectly assume that a flashing light means a 4-way stop. And we had seen a number of fatalities where it was clearly evident that drivers were expecting vehicles traveling in the on the other roadway to come to a stop at the intersection. Simply not the case. So we were challenged in order to see why these flashers were there in the first place. We went back and reviewed when they were installed. Many of them installed by the Ministry of Transportation when these used to be provincial secondary highways, and weren't removed when those highway designations were, or when the highways themselves, were downloaded to municipalities and in many cases to the County of Middlesex. The flashers are meant to be a way of making drivers aware of an upcoming stop when there are sightline deficiencies. So when it's a short distance to an intersection around a curve, perhaps the stop sign is hidden by a hill, those type of situations are where those flashers are meant to be used and where they're effective. In this case, and in many other cases across the county, we've seen positive driver behavior when the flashing lights were removed. And we're certainly seeing success with other safety measures at those intersections. So I think those are sort of the main items that we've talked about at this intersection. We actually have also reviewed intersection illumination. The statistics that we've seen are these collisions are happening during the day. We don't have a record of nighttime collisions. There are many reasons for that. I certainly would bore you to death with some of the research that I've read about why traveling at 2 o'clock in the afternoon can be more dangerous than traveling at 4 o'clock in the morning. But it's really related, the theory is it's related to driver attention. When the weather is nice, people's minds sort of drift to other things. You're driving, you feel safe, you're on a familiar road in many cases. You're thinking about what's happening tonight, what you're going to have for dinner, and people tend to zone out and then they lose concentration, which is why the experience is that we see more deadly collisions in the middle of the afternoon on bright sunny days without a cloud in the sky versus 2 o'clock in the morning in February with heavy snow. And it's just it's human nature, and there's not a magic bullet to fix that. But we certainly can provide drivers with a safe option across Middlesex County. I was speaking to one of our lawyers very recently, not a county lawyer, an outside lawyer, who asked me, Chris, how do you correct dangerous situations across the county? Excuse me. And I would very strongly and safely admit there are no hazardous intersections in Middlesex County. All of our intersections are designed to be safely traveled by drivers who are operating their vehicles in a safe and conscientious manner. That is my true and honest belief across the county. If there was any of these areas, roads, intersections that were unsafe, we would endeavor to fix those immediately. So we do the best we can. We know drivers can't be attentive all the time. We can do everything we can do from an engineering perspective to help. And I'm certainly hopeful that we can enhance education across the county. I feel that somewhere we can be stronger, something that's somewhat lacking. And I think it's something that we can work on together. And we also continue to support the OPP in their efforts for traffic enforcement. We very strongly support tougher enforcement laws, especially around speed racing, to make sure that people who are, willingly acting in a negligent manner, driving their cars at reckless rates of speed, are punished appropriately. And those punishments are used as a deterrent to help curb that behavior. So we're all working together. We've got a great relationship with the OPP in Middlesex County. I'm very happy to say that. We certainly have a great relationship with some of our educators. We're not that concerned about young drivers. Young drivers are getting educated, but we are concerned about older drivers who may not have had a driving test for many years, and what we can do to provide them more information and give them better tools to travel safely across our region and across Ontario. So, Mr. Mayor, I might just stop there. I like to talk, but maybe I'll be quiet, and we can certainly be happy to provide more information or answer questions from members of council.
Thank you very much, Chris. It's a complex subject, and I want to thank you for the numerous emails that you and I have had between each other over this subject. Council, the opportunity to ask questions. We'll try to avoid repetition, and we'll focus on questions to Chris. I'm looking forward to some hands coming up. Council, please go ahead, raise your hand, and we'll entertain a question. Yes, Councillor Cal, through the chair, go ahead, followed by Councillor Bartlett. Well, you're on mute. You're on mute, Councillor Cal. Yep, got it.
Through the chair to Mr. Trainee, when you submitted the report on the LED lights to the county, you referenced the report from the Transportation Association of Canada and how effective LED lights truly are when they are specifically used with stop signs and yield signs because of the shape of the sign. And in our discussion at our own council, we talked about getting a delegation to the Minister of Transportation at AMO and having Kelly Elliott, who represents Good Roads, along with yourself for the county, to come in. And unfortunately, we were not able to secure a delegation. And the hopes was that you had mentioned that the legislation currently does not allow for this type of signage, and that doing so runs the risk of it not being considered a legal sign. So the theoretical plan would be to change the law so it can be recognized, especially with a report that is so, it's over a decade old, which shows how effective they can be. Were you successful in having a delegation with the Ministry of Transportation to bring this up? And what are your plans to do that?
Through the mayor, thank you, Councillor Cowell. You hit it absolutely on the head with your comments. My opinion is the signs are effective. Certainly, if there was an ability for us to be using these signs in Middlesex County, we would have, and you referenced that guide from the Transportation Association of Canada, they actually strongly recommend having a policy or a guideline, giving some direction about criteria to be established for the usage of those signs within your municipality. We would have that policy in place, and we would be using these. I can think of several locations, and likely Melbourne and Glendon Drive would be high on the list. I've been working through Ontario Good Roads Association. Their advocacy day is actually at the end of September. They actually meet with, I don't know how many they're going to get this year, but they're actually hosting an event. So we meet with many of the MPPs directly in Queen's Park. And I've been working with Kelly Elliott, Scott Butler, the director of OJRA, and their president, Dave Burton. And we've been working on including that as one of the advocacy items for OJRA to talk about modifications to the Highway Traffic Act, and in turn, modifications to the Ontario Traffic Manual, the regulatory sign book, which I believe is book 5, to allow for these signs to be used. I believe there's enough evidence out there to show that they can safely be used. And I think there's enough also evidence out there that we can properly maintain these signs and ensure that they're functional. One of the concerns we always have, and I won't blather on too much about minimum maintenance standards, but whenever we put up a traffic safety device, there's a duty for us to make sure it's operating correctly. So a traffic signal, if it goes out, we have to go out and repair it immediately. If a stop sign is down, we have a duty to go out there and replace that, as soon as we're aware that that sign is out of commission. I think one of the things they worry about with revising the legislation that I've heard is that, how do we know, okay, if there's 8 lights around the sign, if one's out, is that okay? If 3 are out, then we have to do an immediate repair. So I think they're worried about some of those maintenance items. But again, I think it's something that needs to be brought to the front of mind to the Minister of Transportation, to the Premier, hopefully, and to anyone else who will really listen to us. And I know there are advocates at Queen's Park who I've spoken to in the past in my role with OJRA, but also I know that have always responded positively when they can support a very simple modification. I know it's never simple to modify law and legislation, but a simple modification to allow for inclusion of some kind of illuminated sign that can be pretty clearly defined within the Act.
Thank you, Chris. One follow-up question, Councillor Cal.
Yes, please. Thank you. So as a follow-up question, oftentimes we see in our correspondence from other municipalities making requests to modifications to the legislation at the provincial level. Would you be willing to craft one, to help us craft one, either for our municipality or for the county or both, to send that off to the Ministry of Transportation to sort of make our voices a little louder and get the support of surrounding communities as well?
Well, through the mayor, certainly, I can suggest that, and might suggest that Mr. Mayor, in his role as a county councillor, that he and I work together to speak to the warden and have an opportunity for us to wordsmith something together that we could send off to the Minister of Transportation. I know Mayor Mayhew and I have talked about this at length for many years. And he's been a champion of improving safety, not just here in South Middlesex, but across Middlesex County. So certainly something I'd be happy to work on and put forward to County Council for approval.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Cal. Those are great questions. The chair appreciates it, and I'm sure Mr. Trainee does as well. Doug Bartlett's next, followed by Councillor McGill.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Chris. You mentioned the province not allowing the LED lights, but I believe you also said that Huron County has used them with some success. How are they able to do it then?
Through the mayor to Councillor Bartlett. Yeah, and I know the county engineer, Steve Lund, and I have gone way back for many years, and he took it upon himself to install the signs. So there wasn't a formal council decision to do that. He decided as a director of roads to do that on his own, and they've been doing that and looking at this in more detail. But they didn't check and review back and speak to their insurers or do any of this additional sort of background work that we had done in the county. And Steve and his team, is great that they've moved forward and implemented some of these things. And I certainly can't comment directly on what their council has done post the installation of the signs. I know Steve has had a couple of struggles. So there's been a couple of things with the signs. It was a relatively new technology when they put it in. So there's always going to be some hurdles with new technology, making sure the signs operate effectively. I don't know if you've driven up its airport line in Huron County. Some of the signs, if they start to turn a little bit, they've had some challenges with the LEDs where they're actually set in the sign. Sometimes you can't see them very well. They're slightly recessed, so they've talked more about sort of pushing those lights a little bit further forward. Some of those issues, some of the issues around functionality, some of the things I talked about with some failures of different LEDs, things like that. And they've tried a bunch of different signs, which is great. And I really commend Steve for being innovative and moving forward with that. And again, we've been watching that very closely to see what kind of successes they've had. Now, I don't have a final report from Huron County. I know that they have still had collisions at some of these intersections, but they've also had successes. So again, when there's a further report to be brought forward, from Huron, certainly we'll look at that with great interest and report that back to County Council. And hopefully it will support what Councillor Cowell has suggested, which is, a further support for a modification of the Highway Traffic Act to allow for these types of signs to be used across Ontario and for the police to enforce those signs.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor McGill, go ahead through the chair.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I go over to Lambton County a fair bit, and the corner of Nauvoo Road, and I believe it's called Confederation Line. It's Dundonald when it goes through Glencoe. Years ago, they had a lot of accidents at that intersection. And then they put lights in. There's red lights. I think there's about 3 red lights in the one direction and a yellow light in the other direction. Ever since they did that, they haven't had any more accidents. And I know a lot of other counties use lights too. So why couldn't we use lights? And I'm having a little difficulty understanding why people might be enthusiastic about LED lights, because a light's a light. Whether the source is LED or something else, it's still a light. That's what I'd like. That's all my comment.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Mr. Trainee, can you comfort Mark in some way there or add to the discussion?
I certainly hope to. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Councillor McGill. Yeah, and again, I know Jason Cole, who's a county engineer over in Lambton, and the challenges they've had at Nauvoo Road and that intersection is a challenging one for them. A little different layout than what we've got, in our neck of the woods here, but they've certainly had some challenges. From what I understand, it's not collision free, but it's certainly something that they've been experimenting with or doing things with regards to adding additional lights. And it hasn't been all in one foul swoop either. I'm sure you know that they've added lights and more lights and more lights over the years at that intersection. And I'm not sure that that's the ultimate solution there either. And they certainly, like we do here in Middlesex, are continuing to monitor that intersection very closely. As far as LED lights, and maybe I should just be a little bit more clear, you're absolutely right. It's just a light source. So almost all of our traffic signals in Middlesex County all use light emitting diodes, which is just a different type of bulb. So it's a bulb. Instead of having one incandescent, or what we've been used to for years, bulb that lights up, it's many pinpoint lights. They're light emitting diodes. So they all get clustered together to form a traffic signal head or a luminaire or anything else that emits light. And the reason that we've gone that way is they're very energy efficient. We've seen reductions in our billings, our hydro billings by 90%, 95% in many cases, simply because you use much, much less electricity. I'm a big fan, other than in the winter. We've had a few challenges. We apply de-icer and things of that nature onto our signal lenses, depending on the orientation. The one advantage of an incandescent bulb is they generate heat as well as light, so they would melt snow and ice off of those bulbs. So again, it's not a question of an incandescent light versus an LED light. A light is a light, and nowadays we always gravitate towards LEDs. In any sense of imagination. So we talk about a flashing light on a stop sign, an LED light on a stop sign. You can talk about a blinker on top of a stop sign. You can talk about these other things. We would still have those concerns about making sure drivers understand it's not a four-way stop. But right now, it's not even a tool we can really look at as far as we've been told. So it's something we would like to add to our toolbox. But again, we have talked about flashers in the past. Councillor Wilkins and Councillor Mayhew, everyone who's been on county council, we've looked at these different issues with flashers in the past, but yeah, we would use LEDs regardless if it's pinpoint lights around a sign or one big red light on top of a stop sign. It's all the same.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Yes, Deputy Mayor Wilkins, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mayor Mayhew. Thank you, Chris, for coming tonight. That was very informative. So, Chris, a neighboring county has, I think just this year, decided to give their council, as well as local councils and staff, a once weekly report on any ongoing construction projects in the county. The rumble strips that have just been redone comes to mind when I think of this. And that's just in an effort to keep everybody informed and up to date. I know that the one local community then puts it on social media for the community to see. I'm just wondering if this is something that Middlesex County could develop as a communication approach for something like this too, for us.
Well, through the mayor, very good timing, Deputy Mayor Wilkins, because we're actually working right now at the county level to develop a social media policy and program. So we will create we have social media accounts, but they're not very robust. We certainly don't have the capacity in-house with the existing staff to maintain these things the way they should be maintained. We need someone to make sure that things are being updated constantly. They're being monitored to make sure if there's comments, if they're important comments, they're addressed and forwarded to the correct people. If they're inappropriate comments, to make sure we have a moderator to make sure those comments are removed or deleted or blocked in some sort of way, to make sure that, everything is being respectful and that we're, moving forward in a way that has a positive impact. So we are looking at that, not just for roads, for construction updates. We very recently had an emergency bridge closure that we had to put out into the public. We didn't have a great way to communicate that, but we did the best thing that we could. And again, we try to be proactive about communicating our construction projects in the local communities where they're occurring well ahead of our program. So, we know our construction program for about a 5-year period. There's a draft program that's approved by council. And then, of course, our tendered program for each year for our paving work that's going to happen, our road reconstruction work that's going to happen. We communicate that through early in the year, part of our budget process, but also just part of our sort of early spring roads and bridge council reports. So it's a great point. We are working on it and very excited about this, but it's across the board. So it's economic development, it's planning, it's roads, it's libraries, it's everything. So we're going to have a more comprehensive program. We're hoping to fund it somehow, but we'll figure out how that goes. But again, it's going to be a more robust communications or social media outreach to the public to let everyone know what's going on across the county and in their local communities.
Thank you. Yes, and a follow-up question, Deputy Mayor.
It's just a comment to Chris. Thank you, Chris. I'm happy to hear that actually. But I'm just wondering, when you give that report, if it's a weekly report in to your team for the county's website or whatever, Facebook site, whatever, Twitter, whatever they're doing, could you forward that to the local municipalities as well?
Through the mayor, and that's certainly some of the things that we're working on right now is to disseminate that communication, whether it goes through the clerk or the CAOs or some other means of communication. So, we all work very closely together on a number of different avenues, through planning, through roads, through our IT, all these different things. So again, we'll make sure that when this gets set up, there'll be a protocol to make sure the information is getting to the right ears and eyes.
Thank you, Chris. I'll be looking forward to it.
Councillor Vink, go ahead now, please.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. To Chris, what about the Cragamighty situation? I know quite a few spots on Longwich Road, also on Glendon Road, even on this concession, there were Cragamighties growing, and that is also a safety issue. And also, I see in a number of places it's affecting the drainage of the areas as well. So is that being looked into?
Through the mayor to Councillor Vink, and again, Mayor Mayhew will tell you that this comes up from time to time at County Council. And Mark Brown, who's our forestry and weeds officer, and I work together closely. We actually did some pilot programs last year. We're doing some more of that this year. again, there's a few challenges out there, mainly due to the fact that we can't apply pesticide or weed control to Phragmites when they're growing in an aquatic setting. So if there's water in the ditch, if it's close to a water course, those types of things, we don't have an approved product we can use in Canada. There is one close to approval, I understand, but it's still something we can't do at this point. We do have protocols for our staff who are cutting in areas where there's Phragmites. If they do cut Phragmites, they go back and treat, and they actually stop. And there's a protocol for them to clean their equipment to make sure we're not spreading Phragmites, further afield from our regular roadside cutting activities. So we are working on it. We did have a successful program with a couple of treatments that we did. I know last fall we had a report. We'll likely have another report this year. So stay tuned for that. But I will ask Mark and have a discussion about what we've been doing this summer for Phragmites.
Thank you very much. Councillor Scholdice, it's good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Any other questions? Last call. Well, seeing none from the chair, Chris, I want to thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to speak to you. It would be great to see you even on a more regular basis. So we'll have to chat about that. And I look forward to our discussions with the warden, yourself and myself, and we'll continue lobbying. Unfortunately, humankind is not perfect. And there's times when leadership means modifying behavior, Chris. So we may have to do that. So I look forward to future discussions. Thank you very much. Councillor Cal, one more question. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I was just reminded that Vision Zero is on our agenda to speak about later tonight. And I was reminded by the mayor's comments that said folks make mistakes, humans make mistakes. And we see that a lot with the accidents that are happening at some of the intersections that we deem concerning in our community. Not just the one near Melbourne, but the ones near Melbourne, but the one also in Wardsville. One of the principles of Vision Zero, as you know, is to take responsibility of the fact that humans make mistakes. So how can we reduce the amount of mistakes folks make while on the road in the engineering process of our roads? And sometimes that means roundabouts, and sometimes that means lights, actual stoplights, and all the different mechanisms that we use. And I know that currently Middlesex County does not have a Vision Zero policy, but they do use it as a guiding belief system, because I've seen it in some of your presentations. I would really like to see that in our community, not so much with the large price tag that comes with it. Is there recommendations that you can give us for this discussion that we will be having later? Because I know you'll be missed in that. Thank you. Through the chair. Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, Chris, I guess even your opinion on Vision Zero philosophy, and are you supportive of it? Municipalities adopting that program or even modeling that program. Do you, your opinions on that, and as well, Councillor Cal's inquiry.
Yeah, and thanks for the question. And through you, Mayor Mayhew, I support what Vision Zero strives to do. Now, Vision Zero, of course, is not a prescription of a certain way of doing things, but it does do exactly what Councillor Cowell was suggesting, which is trying to take some of that, making things error-proof, let's put it that way. So when people are doing something and they make a mistake, the mistake isn't fatal or is, a minor issue or minor injuries versus fatalities and severe injuries. So there's lots of things we can do. And lots of the stuff we're talking about, like Melbourne Road, putting in rumble strips, doing some of those other things. Those are things that are over and above to help people who, in a normal world, we wouldn't need rumble strips or big stop signs. People would stop at the stop sign and make clear decisions, but people don't. They stop, they miss a stop sign, they do dumb things, they make mistakes, reckless or not, careless or careful, things happen. So I agree with that. Vision Zero, in my opinion, needs to be done in a balanced and efficient and economical way. My predecessor at the county, Dennis Merrill, used to always say, if we wanted to eliminate all collisions and fatalities on county roads, we would post every road at 40 kilometers per hour and have a 4-way stop at every intersection. We certainly would see safer roads, but we certainly would not be very happy about driving around. So it's one of those types of things where we have a set of tools, a toolbox of things we can use, right up to your roundabouts, down to things like rumble strips and better reflective sheeting on our signs and illumination, all these different things that we can talk about and we can use them in a measured way and use them where they're going to be most effective. But again, I absolutely agree that anything we can do to reduce the number of fatalities on our roads, to reduce the severity of injuries for drivers, and also do things to help protect pedestrians and active transportation users, cyclists, and everything else under the sun. So it's really one of those types of statements that doesn't get prescribed in a specific way, but certainly guides things that we do at the county to make sure that we keep our road system safe for everybody.
Thank you, Chris. Well, we've gone beyond our time allocated, but it's been a very good conversation. Chris, I thank you again, and we wish you good health and safe journeys, and we're delighted to have you. Thanks again.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
Council, we have before us our second delegation, a committee to establish a Middlesex County Archives. Carol Small, Ken Breecroft are with us as spokespersons. And we have some community representatives, Mary Simpson and Ina Nelms, I believe, were registered earlier as well. Carol, I'm sure you're going to lead this off. You go ahead and take the floor. We're delighted to have you. Ken, how are you? And if you want to unmute yourself, Carol and Ken, we can begin the discussion. And Carol, are you with us? And if you would please unmute, Carol.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew, for having us. I think Ken is going to lead the discussion. He's from the wonderful community of Southwest Middlesex and knows your community well, and he's a good leader. So I'll let Ken lead this, and if you've got any questions, I'd be happy to answer too.
Okay, Carol, thank you very much. Ken, welcome to Southwest Middlesex Council. You take the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council, for having us. We're pleased to be with you there tonight. And just to point out, we hope to have Mary Simpson with us tonight also, and Ina Nelms. They're both key players in our outfit, in our society in Glencoe. They're members of the executive committee, and they bring a lot of knowledge to the table. Now, also Carol, she hasn't mentioned it, but Carol's a key player in our quest for the County of Middlesex Archive. And she brings with her a wealth of knowledge and certainly lots of enthusiasm too. So what we're going to do is present tonight we do have a slideshow. Now, we've been fortunate that Carol has been able to provide everybody, you folks on council and our members also, with all the fact sheets and a copy of the slideshow too. So we're the Glencoe District Historical Society is part of the committee to establish a Middlesex County Archive. We're very pleased to be part of that. It's very progressive, and we think it's certainly going in the right direction. And I think to point out before we go any further is that historical records are an important part of the community as a community asset. So we have to get that clear, that it's a community asset, and everyone should be involved with that and see the significance. So if we could go through the slides here, I could ask Denny. I guess Denny's in control of the slides. We're going to go to the first slide, because our next slide will tell us about the goals.
Yep. You can change slides, Denny. Yeah. Yeah.
Is he driving or am I driving?
I don't know. Denny, who's the administrator over the program?
He's driving, he's maybe just having trouble clicking to the next slide, so.
I am driving, but I'm not being, which screen can you see right now?
I see committee to establish a Middlesex County archive. It's a blue slide with.
I think we want to move past that one.
And
Next slide, please.
Blue slide. Yep. Yep, it's working now. The goal.
Okay, so the goal is to inform elected officials. That's what we're doing now, and we have as I said, we're very fortunate that Carol's been able to forward all the fact sheets to keep everybody informed and to make sure everybody has a full toolbox. So our goal tonight is to just present the information as we know it and to outline our goals. Next slide. Now, to point out here, there's legislative requirements that we all should be aware of. And if you've been keeping up with the fact sheets, everybody knows that there's an obligation for municipal government to maintain records through the federal provincial governments do mandate that records should be kept. And there's the citations to those requirements. Next slide, please. Okay, where are your records? Are you able to lay your hands on the pre-amalgamation records? Southwest Middlesex is made up of at least 4 municipalities that I know of. They're probably kept in a safe, the original records are probably kept in a safe, well ventilated and secure location. Do we know that for sure? Do we know where all the records are? So I guess we should think about that for a minute as to where Southwest Middlesex records are kept. Next slide, please. How quickly can they be retrieved? Have you ever seen them? Why would you want to see them? Those are all good points. Next slide, please. Do you have digitalized records? Do you keep the original copies? Both valid questions. We sure know that there are sufficient answers to those questions. Are they adequate? The digitalization of records, as we know, technology moves on. What might have been recorded 20 years ago, can it even be retrieved now? Do you have machines that even read that? Next slide, please. Does any of this look familiar? These are typical methods of storing records. And I really can't say that we're much better at the Historical Society. These are the old ways of keeping records. Unfortunately, they're not sufficient for today's purposes. If anybody has any questions or concerns, and if your worship's okay with it, I would entertain any questions to either myself or Carol regarding any of these slides.
I think we'll go through the presentation first, Ken. Okay, that way the chair can see all individuals at the meeting.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
So next slide, please. Today's records require proper environmentally controlled conditions. Temperature, humidity, resistance to mold, brittleness and fading. Sunlight has a major factor on records. Certainly humidity and temperature. Next slide, please. Municipalities and clerks, how do you benefit? Well, there's a whole list here, and I really don't have to read them, but Administrators really don't have to sit around and worry about the records. If they're properly maintained, you can work, you got other things to do. You don't have to worry about records. It's time consuming. It gives staff real jobs to do. You know, it gives you, you can refocus on what needs to be done. So any retrieving of material, archive material, can be done by people who know where they're kept and how they're kept. Move on, please. Will benefit from a county archive? Well, just about everybody. So when you look at municipal staff, town planners, developers, lawyers, architects, anybody who's involved with land development, researchers, genealogists, tourism. Tourism is a big thing. People come from all over to research families. And if they had a central archive to do this, it feeds our culture also. Culture drives tourism. There's arts, recreation, sports, everything relates to heritage and history. And this is especially poignant for Southwest Middlesex too. We can think of, we have some many examples in the past year or two where we've had service clubs, churches, organizations, private individuals. Mayor Mayhew knows himself that that sooner or later comes time to find a safe haven for your papers and artifacts. So the local society can do that, but do you have a local society that's going to be there forever? We have to think about these things. Next slide, please. Why is local history important? Well, that's fairly evident to all of us. I think we all know the importance of local history. It's always been a big part of this community. I've only been here 10 years, but I know how important it is for this community. Southwest Middlesex goes back over 160 years. There's a lot of history here. It's central to Middlesex County. Middlesex County, central to southwestern Ontario. It's very important. History and heritage gives the community identity, gives the whole area identity. Sense of belonging, gives people a sense of pride in their community. Very important. It's all part of our education. It's all part of our history. History is important, history and heritage. Next slide, please. Collections. Well, we're very fortunate at the Historical Society. We have a very full and complete collection. I will say we don't have very much on Indigenous people, and theirs is more toward an oral tradition. We don't have much written record there, but we do have very good reports and records and documentation from all those areas that you see listed. We are concerned about the future of where these documents and records might end up. It's important to think about your collection and where your history is going to end up. Next slide, please. Now, when we talk about access to an archive or a museum, we think about, okay, is there areas there that we could recoup finances to cover some of our costs? Well, yes, there is. There's admission fees, research fees, copying, sales, all these things. They're not big money makers, and they do help offset a little bit of some of your expenditures, but don't count on them as being as being a big money maker. We do rely on public funding.
Okay.
And,
Ken,
Yes.
I see we have 6 more slides going. So if we could pop through those 6 slides, maybe at a little faster clip, that'll be the only way we might be able to entertain a few questions, okay? Because we're running about 15 minutes behind time. So just speed it up a notch, and then perhaps we'll have time for some questions, okay?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Next slide, please. As you can see in this map, Middlesex County is a big hole that supplies, there's no archive, us and our neighbors to the west, but we're central to that map. Next slide, please. Okay, why now? Well, now is the time. There's a lot of things going on with the county. They're going through some restructuring, they're moving. What happens to their records? Volunteers, all of us are getting older. I think our average age at our society is well into the 70s, I would say. And we don't see a lot of young people coming in to take our places. So we're thinking to the future here. So, and not only us, there's other organizations that do belong to our committee. We're all in the same boat here. So think about that a little bit, about our precious records and where they're going to end up. Next slide. Time is now. Middlesex County government is changing. Locations, new seat of government, all records to be removed from the county building and only move once. County should provide an archive, and that's the time to move in. Next, please. So it's pretty much the committee to establish Middlesex County Archives is driving this. We see the time as being crucial now. We have September is the time that we have allotted for Middlesex County for our presentation. We're open for questions or any further discussion on this.
Okay, is that the completion of the slides, Ken? Oh, the choice, yeah.
Okay, so these are examples of how you can lose documents. It's quite easy to lose them unless they're stored properly in a central, safe location. These are not safe locations, and they're typical of what's out there. So thank you very much, Denny.
Good. And Denny, if we can go back.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All done? Good. Well, Ken, thank you very much. Ken, I appreciate you just speeding her up there a bit. We've got about 300 pages before us. Council, I'm going to take a few brief questions here. I'll watch your hands, and the chair will forfeit any questions he has tonight. Are there anyone there? Please go ahead. Yes, Councillor Scholdice, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I'm a history buff myself, and I see the value in these records beyond nostalgia. My question to our county representative is whether the county would consider incorporating such a facility in future plans for their own accommodations now that the county building has been sold.
Okay, that question is being directed to me, Mike. Mike, I'll try to recapture some words I said about 3 hours ago to an individual. And it was pertaining to this Center for Documentation Collection. I said the county has sold a piece of history, of its history, of all of our history. And we are in a reasonably good financial position because of that sale of history. So this, your representative will be putting that forward in the manner that we profited from the sale of this history. So we will reinvest some of that money. We should reinvest some of that money in a treasury as Ken is describing here and his counterparts. I am, as you know, a history buff as well. I frequent the Historical Society occasionally. I have supported it and have some of my own artifacts in there. I know the importance of this, and no question, in view of the fact that we reduced an historical asset from our inventory, some of those funds should be redirected into a meaningful facility that we can have the right temperature, the right humidity, the right administration, the right caretakers of it. But there's no question that Southwest Middlesex Mayor will be extremely supportive of this and very vocal as well.
It's good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yes, Councillor Deputy Mayor Wilkins.
It's 20 hours.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Thank you, Ken, for your presentation. To me, as a councillor and a member of this community, it just makes sense to have one building that does it properly, that holds these records versus 8 buildings. I know that in Southwest Middlesex, we have had at least one incident in the past where we've had to clean records because they haven't been stored properly. So I certainly congratulate all of you for your endeavors and your hard work that you do. And I would certainly support this. So Mayor Mayhew, I will be prepared next meeting to bring forward a notice of motion that Southwest Middlesex supports this as being a county service.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll look forward to that. One more question, Council, from any? Okay. Well, thank you very much. Mary, did I see your hand go up briefly there? Okay, go ahead quickly. Mary, we are pushed for time, so I'm going to have to tell you to be prompt and be speedy.
I just want to thank all of the members of council and staff at Southwest Middlesex for all the work they've done to support the archives, the treasury we have right in our own community that's maintained by volunteers. It's amazing what we have there. And I invite you all to come down, and our hours are open again and the volunteers are cranked up, and we have a huge cataloging process underway. And the Middlesex Center Archives, our sister local organization, is helping us learn how to do this cataloging. And we have a real archivist that's helping us design a system that we all use the same, so that, you know, over the years, as we start to collapse and coordinate these collections together, it'll all be one collection eventually.
Good. Sounds good. Thank you. Krista, do I see your hand up? Okay. Ken, I'll let you have the last word. Go ahead, Ken.
Just to point out, Mr. Mayor, that even with a county archive, that will not totally replace Glencoe and District Historical Society. We're going to maintain our identity and individuality. We're going to certainly support a county archive, and we're going to donate when and where we see is appropriate. But we're, as an entity, we're going to continue and to strive to be an entity as long as we can.
That's good. That's good news. We don't want to do this at the expense of losing a local treasury either. Good. Thank you very much. We want to thank you. Mary, thank you for coming. And we're delighted with that presentation. And we are, Carol, we thank you for your presence as well.
I really appreciate your comments, Mayor Mayhew, and the support of council. That means the world to us. We'll see you September 28th at County Council.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Night.
Thank you, Council, for going that. We're into the consent agenda now, and the chair will pick up speed too here. I will make sure that I'll watch your hands. There are 16 items in the consent agenda. If there's any that you wish withdrawn, please let me know. 5A, July 21st, draft council meeting minutes. Next, Southwest Middlesex vouchers, July 3rd to the 29th. Southwest Middlesex vouchers, July 30th to August 13th. Southwest Middlesex building report, construction $1,338,826. Yes, Councillor Cal?
If we just have a comment, do we have to really pull it out?
Nope, go ahead.
Okay, so my only comment on that one was that there was a build that was happening where the permit, I believe, was $350, and the value of the the project was $0. I'm sorry, I meant to send that along to staff, but I didn't, and I'm happy to send it along to staff after the fact.
Okay, thanks for bringing that out. And that's the most efficient way to deal with it. That's good. 5E, Middlesex London Health Unit, Board of Health update, July 2021. County Council update from Mayor Mayhew. Yes, Councillor Cal, followed by Councillor Scholdice.
In your update, you mentioned how you're providing support for Marymount programming throughout the county, and I was wondering if I'm frozen. Looks like I might be. Oh, nope, not. Okay. Anywho, all your faces were just very still. So my question was, is this a new program that is being provided? I know that in Southwest Middlesex, we already have Marymount coming to provide programming here and in Strathroy-Caradoc, and it was brought up at the Women's Caucus how wonderful this program is, and some of the other communities were interested in having similar program in their communities. So I was wondering if this was a new funding situation or continuing of existing funding.
I don't have the budgetary information in front of me, but I can get back with that response to you, Councillor Cal. I'd be delighted to. I know it was kind of an endorsement in principle. We realize the benefit of it, and I will get you that, the budgetary aspects of it within the next 72 hours, okay?
Thank you.
Yep. And who had a hand up? Councillor Scholdice, yes. Go ahead. Yep.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Given that several organizations and businesses are moving toward mandatory vaccine policies for staff, is this something that is on the county radar for their own staff?
It has, the subject has not come up, Mike. There could be a couple of reasons for that. One is we just haven't had a chance to get to it, or there is the information among staff that we are all vaccinated. Could be another reason. I will find that out. The question, I can pose that question at the next county council meeting. And I think I think we should all also look to our administration to see what the protocol might be within Southwest Middlesex staff as well. But I will ask that question at the next county council meeting, and I too will get back to you on the answer I received from that.
Thank you.
We are Gypsy Moth correspondence from Mayhew regarding an inquiry to Dr. Suzuki. Resolution of the City of Stratford phasing out gas plants. CN Extreme Weather Plan. No doubt this had something to do with the suspicions of the wildfires in BC. Waste-free Wednesday litter cleanup. Correspondence from MECP. Resolution from Northumberland County Municipal Court Manager for the Provincial Offences Act. Yes, Councillor Cal.
Sorry, I was raising my hand for the next one. I was getting ready.
Okay. Resolution Chatham-Kent, affordable internet. Focus Internet is focusing on internet not being a luxury. Yes, Councillor Cal.
I'd like to pull that one out so we can support it
Okay.
later down. Thank you.
5-1. Okay, we will go to resolution Perth County, relationship with MPAC. Leamington's resolution, joint and several liability. And memo from MMAH, Main Street Recovery Act. And volunteerism on Southwest Middlesex property. Registration. Yes, Mike, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. We really shouldn't be placing hurdles in front of those willing to pick up some trash and pull some weeds, of which there are now many. This is another example of community alienation rather than fostering community spirit. My question, though, is we are bringing people in to teach yoga, etc. at classes. What happens to our insurance during one of those classes if someone is injured?
Okay, the question about liability, I would presume they would be insured under their own auspices and their own provider. I think the recommendation did state that it was not the intention to put any blocks up to volunteerism, but we do live in a very litigious society today, and we have to be careful. Some of the comments on social media where even involved going downtown with paintbrushes, and you have to have some type of control. I will let the administration answer the balance of that question in terms of the programming Southwest Middlesex has and the insurability, but I would be very much surprised if it's not already looked after. Jill,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yes. Okay, it looks like we got our whole team here to respond, but Councillor Schuldeis, the report was just to identify that this is allowed. It's not. So there was some information that suggested that volunteers could not participate in helping out on public property, which is not the case. They certainly can, and they do right now. So there are instances of youth groups that get involved in cleaning up, and they just let us know, and that helps to protect them, that we know what's happening, and our insurance does provide some coverage for that. So that the report was to help clarify that, but maybe we weren't as clear as we could be.
Okay, thank you. And Jill, could you address the events that we are hosting in terms of exercise and the second part of that question?
Well, just maybe if Councillor Schuldeis through the mayor, if there was something else we needed to clarify about that, because it seemed
No, I just wondered if there was a difference between the volunteers picking up the trash and the weeds and say our insurance at one of these classes and somebody getting injured. I'm assuming we're taking on liability there as well. So I just really don't want to discourage anybody from doing some downtown cleanup.
and neither do we, which is why we wanted to make it perfectly clear that we would allow for that, and just lay out, that groups would need to let us know. Certainly we are encouraged volunteerism. So if you can help to communicate, that was the intent of the report. And coverage with respect to recreation programming. So we've had those discussions with our legal, but we also, require, like with any kind of activity that somebody's engaging with that's fitness related, where they could get hurt, they also have a responsibility to make sure they know what they're doing. So we have them sign off on a waiver, which is normal with any kind of recreation programming. But if Greg or Kristen have anything to help clarify that.
The chair will recognize the hands here. Councillor Cowell, go ahead.
I think that Jill was asking them to clarify, but as someone who's participated in those exercise programs, I've actually paid to go to them, so they weren't free. So I do harbor some of the responsibility, and there have been a waiver that I've had to sign both times with my contact information saying that I waive responsibility. Furthermore, I'm one of the individuals who volunteers on a regular basis to clean up with the Girl Guides. And every single time that we are planning to do something like that, we just send off an email to the municipality, giving them an FYI saying this is what we're doing on a given day. Sometimes it's the same day because we have nice weather or have been rained out or so on and so forth. And oftentimes the response we get back is, how can we help support you? Is there garbages you need? In the past when we had bag tags, it was, did you need bag tags? That sort of thing. So if anything else, I think this provides the opportunity to open the window. One thing to consider too is we've come across glass and broken glass and things like that. And while we're always mindful because we have the children, don't pick it up, be safe, that sort of thing, get an adult. It's something that we have to take into consideration when we are doing this voluntary service. There may be sharps or other things. We're very fortunate that we don't have to deal with needles and drug paraphernalia, touch wood at this point, especially not in Appin. But it is something that we as volunteers are very mindful with the children and when we're picking up garbage. So I can appreciate that this is a helpful thing to have.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kell. Councillor Schuldeis, I think one of the best things we could do would be to suggest to administration and communications that they, in their next newsletter, we put a positive statement out thanking the volunteers for all the contributions that they do make to Southwest Middlesex. And just to say something to the effect that we want to make sure that you are safe and to see how we can assist in some way to help you. And I think we have to spin a positive message on that. And if that can be put out in our communication, we'll leave that to staff's discretion, but that is something the mayor would like to see. We don't want them to read it incorrectly either. Okay, any other questions on 5P? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion that the consent agenda be accepted with the exception of 5I. I'll take a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor McGill, seconded by Councillor Schuldeis. Discussion? All in favor? Carried. And Krista will deal with 5A under, or 5I under new business. Council, if we could go into committee adjustment now, we'll move, we'll call the meeting to order at 8:15. Council, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof?
Could I just get a motion to move out of council into committee?
Yeah, I sure can, Joe. I apologize for that. Yeah, a motion to move out of a regular session of council.
So moved.
And seconded by Councillor Cowell. All in favor? Carried. And adjustment, we are now into committee of adjustment. We have the motion and the seconder for that. The first item on the business is the minutes, the July 21st minutes. They have been circulated to you, committee. If there's no errors or omissions, I will take a mover and a seconder that they be adopted as circulated. Councillor McGill, Councillor Bartlett for the adoption of the minutes. All in favor? Carried. We'll commence with the business before us. Stephanie, if you can provide to this committee the purpose and effect of application for a minor variance A7 2021 22388 Haggerty Road, the McCann Brothers Limited property. If you could take it away, Steph.
Sure, yep, I'm just sharing my screen with you. So the purpose and effect of the application is to seek relief from the Southwest Middlesex zoning bylaw in order to permit the establishment of a new grain bin in place, and an overhead bin in place of two smaller grain bins with a setback of 20 meters from center line of Haggerty Road or County Road 1, whereas a setback of 33 meters or 108.3 feet from center line is required. And you can see on my screen here that the new grain bin is included as an overlay over the aerial photography. And you can see in the background there the two smaller grain bins that are intended to be replaced. So the subject lands are approximately 18.8 hectares or 46.4 acres in size and contain agricultural land and crop production, grain bins, overhead bins, and a dryer, elevator storage, and a storage shed. The lands have an existing access off of Centerville Drive and Haggerty Road. And the applicant has advised that the larger grain bin will provide additional storage in comparison to the two smaller grain bins. And it will be clustered, as you can see, with the other existing agricultural structures. The new grain bin and overhead bin will not be located any closer to the road than the existing grain bins. Staff have evaluated the proposal against the 4 tests of a minor variance and are of the opinion that it is considered to be minor in nature. It is an appropriate use of the land, and it does meet the intent of the Southwest Middlesex official plan and zoning bylaw. The application has been circulated in accordance to the requirements of the Planning Act, and staff received the following comments. St. Clair Region Conservation Authority noted that the subject application is outside of their jurisdiction. Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority has no objections and the county engineer noted no comments. So it is recommended that the application be granted. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. The order of business in the committee, the next item would be the applicant's remarks. And I believe Gloria Welch is the spokesperson for the McCann brothers. Gloria, would you be with us tonight? We'll just give her a second to see if she is. And Jill, you can advise me if, oh, Bridget Welch. I see a name. Yes. Yes, go ahead. We would love to hear from Gloria if you're with us.
Hello.
Yes, how are you doing?
Good evening. I'm good. Thank you.
Good. If you'd like to make some remarks regarding the application, council are ready for them.
I think Stephanie did a good job of explaining what we wanted to do. And yeah, it's basically just for future growth and making it more efficient, because to fill into one larger grain bin, it's a lot simpler than filling into two separate ones. And they are older grain bins as well. So updating is always a good way to move forward.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, we appreciate your application and wish you well. Is there anything else? And Gloria, you will have another chance. If there's any questions raised by council or members of the public, you will have the opportunity to speak one more time before council makes a decision. Council, it's our turn to make any comments or remarks or questions. You can direct these to Stephanie. Through the chair, are there any? Mark, you're scratching your chin. I don't think that's a hand up. We'll pass on. Jill, could you advise me if there are any oral submissions or written submissions that have come forward?
No, not for this application.
Okay, thank you very much. Committee, that brings us down to the comment recess of 5 minutes. It's 8:21. We'll reconvene at 8:26. Oh, right there's fine. Thank you, Jill, very much. I see it's 8:26. Were there any contacts made during the comment recess?
No, no one registered.
Okay, thank you. Oral submissions from other participants, item number G. There are none. And Gloria, you have the opportunity to speak to us again, and it may not be necessary, but say hello if you wish, and we can move on. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope everyone agrees on the minor variance. We're just actually on our honeymoon, so we're at a restaurant at the moment.
Okay.
So
congratulations, and
yes, thank you, and sorry for the background noise.
no problem. We understand. Thank you very much again. We are in the process of a committee decision at the present time. The recommendation, if you'd like to listen to us on your phone, you certainly can.
Yeah.
Council, we'll move on to the last 9th step, the committee decision. There is a recommendation before you. There has not been a lot of discussion. If you're in acceptance of that, is there a mover and a seconder? Councillor Vink, will you move that?
Yes.
Thank you. And Councillor Scholdice, I see your hand for a seconder. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Committee will open it up for discussion. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Gloria. You got her.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
Stephanie, if I could get your attention again, we're moving on to the second consideration of this committee. Can you advise us, Stephanie, on the purpose and the effect of this application?
I can. I'm just going to share my screen with you again. So as committee will recall, 23517 Dundonald Road was subject to consent application B14/2020, which proposed to sever a lot with an area of 0.2 hectares or 0.49 acres. And subsequent to committee's conditional approval, in consultation with a qualified septic installer and the chief building official, it was determined that a new septic system was required. The applicant also advised that the size of the lot proposed to be severed was not large enough to accommodate a new septic system. And as a result, staff advised that a new application would be needed as the area being proposed is nearly double of what committee approved. And as such, the applicant has submitted consent B8/2021 for committee's consideration. Sorry.
Okay.
The purpose and effect of the application is to sever a residential parcel of land with an area of approximately 0.37 hectares or 0.9 acres from an agricultural property located on Dundonald Road. The lands proposed to be severed contain a single detached dwelling and are otherwise vacant of buildings and structures. The lands proposed to be severed are serviced by a privately owned well, and a new septic system is being proposed. An existing access onto Dundonald Road. And it is noted that the existing well is located on the lands to be retained. And as such, the applicants have requested a consent to establish an access easement over the lands to be retained to allow for continued access to the well. And no change of use is proposed at this time. The lands proposed to be retained consists of agricultural land and crop production and a barn that is to be used for hay storage. And no change of use again is proposed at this time. Staff are of the opinion that the application is consistent with the PPS and in conformity with the county and Southwest Middlesex official plans, as the applicant has demonstrated farm consolidation. Staff, however, are of the opinion that the proposed severed lot is considered to be larger than necessary to accommodate the dwelling and services, and do recommend that the rear and west interior side lot lines be located 3 meters from the septic mantle in order to preserve agricultural land and crop production. And perhaps bear with me, I'll zoom in a little bit here. So the additional lands you can see are croppable, and I'll also share with you the location of the proposed plan for the new septic system. So in reference, this is the proposed location of the septic mantle, currently located 20 meters away from the interior side lot line. And what I am recommending is that that be relocated 3 meters from the mantle. And that was in consultation as well with the chief building official.
Okay.
So I would also note that confirmation of setbacks between the existing single detached dwelling, accessory buildings, and new proposed lot lines will need to be further examined for conformity through the submission of a draft reference plan. And should there any be deficiencies identified through that process, a site-specific rural residential and agricultural zone would be recommended prior to the 3rd reading of the zoning bylaw. So staff are generally satisfied that the criteria of a severance for a surplus farm residence on the lands have been met or can be addressed through the conditions of the consent. The notice of the application has been circulated in accordance to the requirements of the Planning Act, and staff received the following comments. The county engineer has required as a condition of consent that the owner will be required to dedicate lands up to 15 meters from the center line of construction of County Road 80 or Dundonald Road across the severed and retained lands to the County of Middlesex for the purposes of road widening if the right-of-way is not already to that width. The St. Clair Region Conservation Authority stated that the subject property is regulated by the Conservation Authority under Ontario Regulation 171-06. However, the proposed severed parcel is located off or outside of the regulated area, and therefore St. Clair Conservation Authority has no concerns with the proposed severance. And Bell Canada has also noted no concerns with the application. So it is recommended that the application be granted subject to conditions which council will have before them. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie, very much. We can have the screen back. Would the Minimas or their spokesperson wish to address the committee? Oh, Maureen, how are you? Unmute yourself. I see you. Yep. I'll just ask again, would anyone like to speak to the application? Yep. I don't say, and I'll ask for the 3rd time, Reen, if you'd like to speak to it, just unmute yourself, or we'll just go ahead. Okay. We can let that go. We can, and then he'll have another opportunity to come up. Members' remarks, are there any to address through the chair to Stephanie? Yes, Councillor Vink, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. To Stephanie, is this considered another application? I'm thinking more in the line, is this going to cost the owner an additional amount of money? Because I believe the first time the owner followed your recommendation.
Through the mayor to the councillor? Yes, so Staff laid out conditions that need to be fulfilled in order for the consent process to be finalized. Ultimately, they weren't able to be fulfilled, so the application was not able to be complete. That's why the applicant had to reapply for a new application.
Okay, I see, just part of the planning legislation. Okay, council, any other comments, remarks, or questions from members addressed to the chair, to Stephanie? I don't see any. Jill, have there been any oral submissions or written submissions on this application?
No.
Thank you very much. Council, you've got time for a glass of water. We'll have a comment recess of 5 minutes. We will reconvene at 8:41. Thank you very much, committee. Jill, have there been any oral or written submissions?
No, none received.
Thank you very much. The applicant's final remarks, if Mr. Minima or his spokesperson would like to address the committee, they may do so now. And I'll call that invitation one more time. If Mr. Minima or his spokesperson would like to address the committee, they're welcome to. Failing which, we'll move on to the committee decision. Committee, the application has been put before you with the 13 conditions that the planner has suggested here. What's your wish? Would someone entertain to move the recommendation be accepted with the 13 conditions? Moved by Councillor Vink. Is there a seconder? Deputy Mayor Wilkins. Questions? All in favor? Committee accepts the recommendation. Future meetings, September 29th at 7 p.m. Committee of Adjustment Committee. We'll look forward to that. Stephanie with you. And I will adjourn this meeting at 8:42. We'll go back to the regular agenda. We are now looking at the second order of business in regards to planning. On 4A of the regular agenda, we have another planning step we have to do. Stephanie, can you provide the committee with the purpose and effect of this? Oh, just a minute here. Hang on. I'm sorry. Wrong page. Bear with me, council. We'll see if we can find it.
We're just at section 7.
Yep, 7, got it here. Yes, we're in the zoning aspect of it. Stephanie, provide the council the purpose and effect of the zoning application.
I can, thank you. All right, so the subject lands contain a diverse amount of uses, including agricultural in the form of crop and blueberry production, agriculturally related being the U-Pick blueberry operation, and limited non-agricultural being the existing banquet hall and catering establishment. The purpose and effect of the zoning bylaw amendment is to establish a pavilion as an additional permitted use, which is to be utilized as both an agriculturally related use for the U-Pick blueberry customers, as well as a limited non-agricultural use for an outdoor venue for weddings and other events. Staff are of the opinion that the proposed structure is considered to be an extension of the principal use, but is not considered to be accessory structure, as the pavilion is larger in size than the existing banquet hall and has the ability to operate separately from the banquet hall and agricultural use. As such, staff requested a zoning bylaw amendment application be applied for to recognize the structure as a standalone permitted use. The applicant is proposing to locate the pavilion in close proximity to the existing buildings and structures, and a limited amount of agricultural land with the ability to be in crop production will be removed as a result of the proposal. Staff expressed land use compatibility concerns in regards to the additional capacity the pavilion can accommodate and the noise generated from outdoor events such as weddings and concerts. In response, as part of the application submission, the applicants included a noise study completed by SoftDB on June 14th, 2021, which has been included on the council agenda. And this report provides recommendations for sound systems and speakers in order to mitigate potential noise conflicts with surrounding land uses. The agent has advised that the owners will adhere to all the maximum sound level limits set out in the study by using calibrated sound level meter equipment, controlling the volume at the source using specialized monitoring equipment, and the study's recommended placement of the speakers. Additionally, the applicants have proposed to cap the amount of combined seats for the banquet hall and the pavilion to 150 in order to control the intensity of the use. Staff will continue to work with the applicants through the site plan control process on noise mitigation measures. The applicants have advised that there is a total of 100 parking spaces for the existing operation on site. Staff are of the opinion that the 100 parking spaces for the banquet hall can be considered appropriate, as it does exceed 1 parking space for every 2 people, which is considered to be a logical rate. Additionally, the applicant has advised that blueberry picking is not only seasonal, but it also typically occurs in the morning hours, while special events typically occur in the afternoon and evenings, which generally reduces the demand on number of parking spaces needed for multiple uses occurring at the same time. Staff are satisfied that the amount of parking provided is considered logical and appropriate based on the use of the subject lands, and recommend that a minimum parking standard of 100 spaces be added to the site-specific zoning. It is noted that parking along the side of the public road will not be permitted. And again, staff will continue to work with the applicants on delineating parking areas through the site plan control process. As part of the rezoning application, staff recommend that a holding provision be placed on the subject lands, which would be contingent upon the completion of a site plan agreement, including the registration of the agreement on title. Overall, staff are of the opinion that the pavilion as an additional permitted use, as well as the proposed maximum number of seats and minimum amount of parking spaces, is considered to be appropriate for the subject lands and will allow an existing business in the agricultural area to expand at a reasonable scale that is not anticipated to impact the surrounding agricultural uses in the area. The application was circulated in accordance to the requirements of the Planning Act, and staff received the following comments at the time of writing the subject report. So the county engineer noted no comments. Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority has no objections to the application and just noted that permits will be required within areas that are regulated. And the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority noted that the lands are located outside of their jurisdiction. So it is recommended that the application be granted. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. Thank you, Denny, for bringing us back. Phil and Kathy Modell, we're pleased to have this application before us. Would you be present to make remarks or to speak to the application? Phil, how are you? And Phil, you're on mute. Just click that little.
Oh, I'm fine. Thank you.
Good. It's good to have you with us tonight. And we're kind of excited that you're looking at a potential expansion here. If you'd like to make, this gives you the opportunity to speak to the application, Phil, and there will be another section of the meeting where you'll be called upon again if you so wish. Go ahead. You can address the committee.
Well, thank you very much for the time. Mr. Smith is going to speak on our behalf, but I do appreciate everyone's time at the county that they've put into considering this. So thank you, Stephanie, and your team there, and I'll allow Mr. Mayor, Mr. Smith will speak on our behalf.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith. We welcome you as well. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew and members of council. It's good to be here. I see a few familiar faces. We have had here at Monteith Brown Planning Consultants a long-standing relationship with Southwest Middlesex, and in fact, prior to them, my former workplace, we've been working and planning in the area since about 1982, and I'm not sure really I should admit that, but it's been a long time. We've been on both sides of the table with applications. We've represented the municipality before amalgamation and certainly afterwards. And this time we're pleased to be on the representing a private owner in their with their plans to undertake some improvements to their business. The harvest table, as many of you know, has a long-standing relationship with the municipality, dating back, well, at least the U-Pick blueberry operation into the early 1980s, and then more recently, of course, with the Harvest Table Banquet Hall since about 1999. So we're pleased to represent Phil and Kathy on the application. There has been quite a bit of back and forth on it, certainly with the owners and with Stephanie as to the appropriate planning policies and regulations that should go in place here. The actual proposed pavilion itself, we had submitted application and it was shown by Stephanie on the site plan for a footprint of about 40 feet by 70 feet. Further discussions we've had with the owners suggests that a building more in the order of 50 feet by 60 feet for a building footprint of about 3,000 square feet would be more suited to their design aspirations. And so as part of this, I wanted to make that clear to council that we respectfully request that the proposed bylaw incorporate that size limitation on the building itself. We've had an opportunity to review Stephanie's report in detail, and we are agreeable to the caps put on the number of patrons, which really isn't different than what has been in operation for some time now, and the requirement for parking spaces. And as part of that, we would certainly be prepared to revise the site plan as it's been drafted and in front of council to reflect those latest requirements. We see that the holding symbol has been applied or is recommended to be applied. That's no surprise. That goes hand in hand with the requirement that the owners enter into the site plan agreement and have that finalized and registered on title before the holding symbol can be removed. One last comment, I guess, is as part of this is the Middlesex County Economic Development team has come out with some rather strong objectives in terms of how it would like to see things move along in the county on the economic development side. We believe that the proposal by the owners is certainly meshes with that, with those objectives, encourages agritourism in the municipality, and will certainly continue to be a showcase destination for tourists and local patrons alike. Thank you, and that concludes my recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smith. We appreciate that. Jill, have there been any oral or written submissions?
Yes, I've received one written submission. So Harvey Graff of 6550 Riverside Drive, Melbourne, would like to ensure that the amendment to add a pavilion shelter at Arrowwood Farms for the application does not affect the animals that he can have or anything else on his farm production.
Okay. Is it necessary to address that question at this time, Jill? We can have Stephanie chime in here, or is Jill, your sense on zoning and planning are very keen as well. Between the two of you, I think we can provide them with an answer.
I think Stephanie touched on this in her comments earlier, but if the agent for the applicant wishes to speak to it in his closing remarks,
Okay.
that's up to
All right.
the members.
Mr. Smith, I may call on you again to address that question and assure the neighbor that there won't be any impairment to the type of animals he can have. Jill, we are in a comment recess now for 5 minutes. So if we meet back at 9:01, we will hear any oral submissions, and we will give Mr. Smith or Phil and Kathy to have the final remarks and then make a decision. So we adjourn to 9:01.
Very good.
Committee, it's 9:00, council, it's 9:01. We'll resume the meeting. Has there been any oral submissions from other participants submitted?
No, there have not.
Okay. The applicant's final remarks, we're at this juncture now. Mr. Smith, if there's any other comment you wish to make, and Phil or Kathy, if you're available, certainly the chair will certainly allow you the privilege of speaking. Any of you three wish to go ahead, just raise your hand. Put your picture on so I can see you. Or your voice on, okay. Yeah. Phil, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks.
Good to see you.
Appreciate the opportunity. Yeah.
Yes, you wish to make the final remarks?
No, I think I'm happy for Dan to make the final remarks and respond to that comment. So.
Okay, we'll wait for Dan to get back with us. Mr. Smith, if you're available.
Mayor Mayhew, he's present.
Oh, is he? Okay. Oh, I see him up there, Dan. Yep. Okay. I see you now. You're tucked away in the corner here. Dan, go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in response to the inquiry about the neighboring livestock operation, when we reviewed those the guidelines set out by AMAFRA, we did have a look at that. We did acknowledge the presence of that livestock operation. In this instance, we were satisfied that the MDS1 calculations were not necessary because the use is not changing. It's been in operation, as it were, as I pointed out, for over 20 years. There is no change in use being proposed. There is no intensity of that use being proposed, or increase in intensity, sorry. In terms of what the neighboring livestock operator is concerned about, obviously, is the application of MDS2 if he were to expand his operation. And I would suggest in that instance, he would not be limited in terms of expansion by the proposed rezoning in this case as much as he would with other existing uses and dwellings that are in the neighborhood as well. And perhaps the municipal planner might have a different opinion there, but that would be my immediate take on it, as it were.
Yep. Thank you. Before we go on, I would be amiss, Stephanie, if I didn't invite you for an opinion on that individual that's concerned. I know it's not part of your package presentation, but are you?
Sure, through the mayor. I would agree with Dan. Generally, if there is a livestock expansion being proposed, staff would undergo the appropriate MDS calculations at the time, which would accommodate all the surrounding properties and the existing uses.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Stephanie, thanks for the clarification on that. We are at the last item on I, the council decision. The recommendation has been put before you. It's been suggested that it be granted with the 4 reasons the planner has given. Council decision, if I can have a mover and a seconder, we'll open this up for discussion. Councillor Cal, will you move that?
I would be happy to, but before I do, I just have a quick question.
Okay.
I know that the models have many special events that happen at that location and that they will continue to be using tents, I suspect, moving forward. And each time they get a tent, they require a permit. And I'm just wondering if the holding symbol will prevent them from being able to be issued a building permit for a tent usage on weekends.
Okay. Stephanie, I'll let you answer that question.
Through the mayor to the councillor, yes, generally the holding provision prevents the issuance of a building permit. And perhaps the applicant could speak in regards to the tent use and perhaps the more permanent structure was in replacement of the temporary structures, but I would have to defer that side of things to the agent or the owner.
Okay, the chair, Phil, will allow you, it deviates from the agenda here, but by all means, I think you have some information to share and the information is valuable. Phil, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, right now, due to COVID regulations, most of our events have to be done in a tent that are greater than a certain size. So there are a number of events for this year that are booked, and people have already booked a tent for our facility. So preventing them from obtaining a building permit for their tents this year would be an obstacle to them, and we would result in probably a number of cancellations for this year. But Stephanie was right. The intent is that this would replace the tents, and that going forward, we would no longer permit tents on a regular basis, except for perhaps some special circumstances. But the intent is that we want to reduce the traffic and the wear and tear on our property by having tents erected on a periodic basis, and that this pavilion would be a way to minimize that wear and tear on our property. So we would not be looking at tents in the future.
Okay, thank you. One more question, Councillor Cal, quickly. Yeah.
Just as a follow-up question, if we move forward with this, that means that going forward for the remainder of the year, Mr. Model would not be able to have tents on his property, is what they've just explained. So is there some way we can accommodate this so that we don't result in canceled business, at least for this year? Is there a way to put the holding symbol on January 1st? Is there a way that we can allow him to have conditional permits that don't have to continually come to council for approval and create more red tape for Mr. Model? This is very pertinent to the decision we make today, because I'm sure we can agree that if we remove the holding symbol, that would accommodate Mr. Model, but it doesn't necessarily accommodate the planner. So I'd like some advice about that before we move forward.
Yes, it is a red herring. I'm surprised that Monteith Brown and planning didn't foresee this. Jill, Stephanie, can you walk us through this? Is there a way to assure that these encumbrances against his bookings and marketing be avoided? Is there any mechanics we can use, Jill?
So I think that the holding provision, I think Stephanie can speak to the purpose of the holding provision and why it is in place and why it is an important step in the process to help Mr. Model move his business along. In terms of planning process, I guess, I mean, one option would be to defer if you're looking to not have this occur at this time of year. I suppose that's one option, but having not really had the question before right now, I'm not sure what else we could come up with. And Stephanie, is there any suggestion you would have?
So through the mayor, I certainly can expand on the reason for the holding provision. It essentially prevents the new listed permitted use of the zoning to be applicable until the holding provision is in place. So without it, if we were to pass the zoning this evening, all 3 readings, we wouldn't have, or the building department wouldn't have an indication that prevents, that would stop them from issuance of a building permit.
Okay. Council, is there an understanding on that, or do you want to, yeah, I see some heads shaking. Stephanie, you're going to have to walk us through this one more time on a more elementary level.
So the purpose of a holding provision, perhaps, Stephanie, do you just want to speak to that, why there's a holding provision to prevent this in the first place?
Yeah, so the purpose of the holding provision prevents the zoning from coming into full force and effect, essentially, until it is lifted. And the reason for that is to have orderly and planned development through ways of the site plan. So matters need to be further addressed before the zoning can be in full force and effect, and the issuance of building permits to take place in regards to the permanent proposed structure.
So
I can't further comment aside from Jill's recommendation for deferral in terms of the temporary tents for the remainder of the season, without having consulted with our building team, unfortunately.
okay, we want to accommodate our clients here, Phil. That's an option. With that holding provision delayed, does that not allow him the opportunity to, over the course of the next, the wedding season is very short from here on in. We are going to be into inclement weather soon. Phil, are there bookings in the immediate 90 days? 90 days would take us to November, just about.
Yes, the season typically goes to the end of October-ish.
Okay, and you have bookings. I just don't want to see you in a potential predicament here. Dan, can you shed any light on this? Or have you any concerns?
One thing comes to mind, Mr. Mayor, and we have done it before, crafted bylaws to the effect that if in fact the holding symbol were applied, that it could address certain aspects or apply to certain buildings or structures, as opposed to a blanket prohibition on certain uses. So in other words, the draft bylaw amendment itself could still contain the holding symbol, but it would only apply to the construction of the pavilion itself, and it wouldn't affect any tent rentals or tent erections that would be required. I have seen bylaws drafted that way in the past.
Jill, you're instrumental in drafting these bylaws. Can you concur with Dan on this, that language could be added, or are you reluctant or feel reluctant the council should move in that direction?
It doesn't seem unreasonable. However, I think it would be important for us to have a conversation with the building department in order, prior to making that kind of a change to the bylaw, just so it's clear to them. So this is the hesitation, is that we haven't got the players at the table who could maybe best address that might be drafted in the bylaw. To make sure that it coincides with what it is that, so the building department would be clear, and for the applicant to be clear on what's allowed as well.
Phil, if we defer this, it's to your advantage. We're hoping to work with you on that. And I'm suggesting to council that even if we had to call a special meeting on this, we do that to support economic development and advancement of our economy. So that question has a very good opportunity to come before you over the course of the next few minutes. Councillor Cal, go ahead. I'm sorry to keep you waiting.
No, that's okay. Through the chair to Mr. Smith and Mr. Model. My question was mostly to you folks about the idea of deferring this until we could have a clear response. I don't want to move hastily into something that would cause you financial hardship or weddings in general. I can't imagine what it must be like to get married in COVID and then be like, boom, you can't get a building permit. So my question was just to those folks if they would be willing to have us defer this until we could have an answer that could resolve this situation in an effort to have the best possible outcome.
Okay. Phil, or if Kathy's there, would you be, if we kind of go on a handshake that we'll try to expedite this as soon as we possibly can, Phil, to gain some clarity to this discussion on the erection of tents prior to the pavilion being built? Would you be okay with that?
Yes, we certainly would, and we certainly appreciate this being brought up as a matter of discussion. We appreciate all the time that has been taken tonight to discuss it, and that would be quite satisfactory.
Okay, so we'll instruct, there'll be a motion to come that we defer this in order to enhance our understanding of the situation, and we'll talk to the building department. And Stephanie will still be involved in those. And we're hoping to come up, our objective is to come up to with some language that for a temporary period of time prior to the facility being built, that we can overcome this little dilemma here, this hiccup. Okay. Jill, would someone like, could you perhaps, what I just stated perhaps is not the best choice of words in a motion. I don't think we need the word hiccup in a motion.
Yeah,
But,
I'll make a motion to
press
defer.
some language and have a motion. I can do it, or Councillor Cal, if you want to take a swing at it, go ahead.
I think that Deputy Mayor Wilkins motioned it, so I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously, and thank you very much, Dan. We will, and Phil, we'll try to expedite this in our earliest convenience, okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Stephanie, we'll move on to the David McEachran property. If you can provide the council with the purpose and effect of the second application.
I can. Thank you. So the purpose and effect of the application is to, as a condition of consent, to rezone the, in this case, the opposite, because it was a reverse surplus farm dwelling severance. So it is to rezone the retained lands to the rural residential zone, which is the dwelling property highlighted in yellow, from the general agricultural zone to the rural residential zone, as well as rezone the severed portion, which is in this case the agricultural land, from the general agricultural zone to the agricultural A2 zone, and that's to prohibit future dwellings from being constructed. As per the policies, staff have received a draft reference plan and have reviewed both the severed and retained parcels for zoning conformity and do not have any concerns. They both parcels appear to comply with their proposed zoning categories. The notice of the application has been circulated in accordance to the requirements of the Planning Act. Staff received the following comments. The St. Clair Region Conservation Authority noted no concerns with the application. Staff are satisfied that all policies are being met, and so the recommendation is that the application be granted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The applicant will now be allowed the opportunity to speak to the application if they're present. The chair will ask that one more time. The applicant will now be allowed the opportunity to speak to this application. Paula, are you on the screen? Paula Downs.
Good evening, Mayor,
How are you?
fellow council members. How are you this evening?
Good, and you?
Wonderful. It's 9:20 at night. Happy to get moving on this. And my client, Mr. McEachran's here, and we just have a few brief comments. I mean, Stephanie has succinctly summarized what the zoning application's about. It's supporting a severance application, so it's just part of the condition to move these two matters forward. And so I have nothing further to add based on Stephanie's comment and the staff support of the application.
Okay, thank you very much. Members' remarks, if you'd like to address them to the through the chair to Paula or David. Any questions? Seeing none. Jill, have there been any oral or written submissions?
No.
Thank you very much. We have a comment recess for 5 minutes to allow the public to entertain any questions. We will adjourn and reconvene at 9:25.
Thank you.
Jill, have there been any communications from other participants?
No.
Okay, thank you very much. Applicant's final remarks are next. Paula, if you or David would like to close, or we can move on, whatever you wish.
Let's move on.
Okay, we'll move on. Council, the recommendation is before you. It has been granted with the 4 reasons given below. Would someone entertain a motion to accept it? Thank you, Councillor Cowell, seconded by Councillor Scholdice. Councillor, are there any conversations or questions on this motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much, David, and thank you, Paula.
Thank you, Mayor
Paula.
Mayhew. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Wilkins, and thank you, council members, for supporting this application. Have a good night.
We are into staff reports at present. We'll start with the fire first. Administration, staff, are you waving goodbye?
I was.
Okay,
Good night,
yeah.
everyone.
Good night. Thanks for coming. I apologize for not giving you the red carpet to go home on. You go enjoy the rest of the evening, okay? We're on staff reports here. Staff, I'm looking at the clock. The chair is really trying to expedite this meeting along. There are many staff reports. If you have several, I guess particularly Greg, if you wish to prioritize some of those reports, they don't necessarily have to be given in sequence. So you give it some thought before we get to you. If there's some of those staff reports you have, I know are very timely and time sensitive. If you have to move that order around, don't hesitate to ask the chair to do so. Chief Sewell will bring you on regarding the overhead heating.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through council. I'm proposing that we move ahead with the overhead heating for the installation of natural gas heaters in the apparatus bay. This would entail being able to facilitate a rapid heat as we come into the winter season and have the project complete. And I look to council for any questions as we hopefully can move forward on this issue.
Thank you very much. We'll open up the questions. Councillor Cowell first.
I'd like to move the recommendation.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Wilkins. Council, questions through the chair to the fire chief. Go ahead, Councillor McGill.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I like the fire chief and Deputy Chief Rob Cole's proposal from back in February, where they were going to have a boiler-fired in-floor heat. And I know lots of people have that. It works great. But they were also going to have the overhead tube heaters. So there'd be 2 different sources of heat, since we are using it as a potential emergency heating location. But I think I made that motion and nobody even seconded it. So that's not going to happen. So I'm willing to support this proposal, because at least then we will have a better system than we have now. We'll have something that will warm that facility up rapidly, and we'll also have 2 sources of heat. So in case one failed, then we'd have the other.
Okay, you've got the point. Thank you, Councillor McGill. I think council, it has been said that de-icing of frozen up equipment is very important. And the radiant heat will expedite that process during winter fires and get them in shape for a second call if it comes. Continuing on with questions, are there any? Chief Sewell, are there any ceiling fans initiated for that installation at all? Have any been considered?
When we reached through your worship, through your Mr. Mayor to council, we did reach out to some technical experts, and due to the size of the building, they did recommend some ceiling fans to have the movement and consistent heat around the apparatus space. So okay. Yes, that was suggested, and that's included in the estimate.
Good, that's very good. I'm pleased to hear that. Thank you very much for answering that. Last call for questions. Seeing none, we have a mover and a seconder. I'll call the motion. All in favor of the installation of the radiant heat and ceiling fans? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council.
Administration, Jill, if you wish to proceed with this, or in lieu of time, if you think there's other things you wish to proceed with this report, you're certainly welcome. Or if in the interest of time you think it can be deferred, we can do that as well.
So I would just offer that we do have fairly packed agendas in September as well. So I think the faster you can get through some of these things, it might be better off to try this evening. And I've prepared the report. If there's questions, I'm happy to answer it, but I don't need to speak to it.
Okay. Thank you, Jill. You've given council some options, and I'm sure there'll be requests for explanation from you on that. We take Southwest Middlesex takes animal control seriously, and we know that we're due for an update. Council, are there any questions that you would like to ask through the chair to Jill regarding this report and the options she has? Yes, Councillor McGill, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I'd just like to ask Jill, when we pay Vicky Kyle at Glencoe Animal Shelter, what all does that service cover? It would cover dogs. Does she deal with cats too, or any other animals?
It's really just a dog program that we have in Southwest Middlesex. She does offer pound services for other municipalities as well, but the program that she really assists with us has to do with dogs as the pound keeper primarily. So we have a contract with her for that. She has also on either every 2 years, every 3 years, has gone out to do the enumeration of dogs and issued brand new licenses. And that's one of the recommendations, that if council would consider a change to that program, but that's a separate contract.
Okay. Mark, no follow-up?
Well, I'm leaning towards either option 1 or option 2, because I think what we're doing now with having somebody go out, I think it's every 3rd year, to enumerate. Probably a lot of dogs get missed anyway, because a lot of them are in the house and people are at work. It's not like years ago when most of the dogs were outside and the person selling the licenses could see a doghouse there and know there was a dog there. So I think if we go with option 1 or 2, we could eliminate that and save that expense. I'm more leaning towards option 2, because I'm afraid if we go with option 1 and make people, I guess, or ask people to just notify the municipality and pay a fee, a one-time fee for the life of the dog, they might not do it. If we go with option 2 and charge no fee, we're more apt to actually get a list of what dogs there are, because a lot of people microchip their dogs.
Yeah.
You know, they'll put their own tag on it with the dog's name and a phone number to contact. They might think, I don't really need to notify the municipality, when in fact it would be better if they did.
Bring it to a close, Mark. That's good.
That's it.
Okay. Councillor Cal, go ahead, followed by Councillor Scholdice.
I have seen and heard and followed that other communities are doing something similar, where they're transitioning away from a holistic program, because the wild dog, not wild, but free range dogs are an issue for everyone in the community. And I think that we had that issue in previous months, where there was a couple of dogs that were constantly being loose and they were a little bit aggressive. And I think it's in the best nature, public health and safety wise, to have a program that is for the benefit of all ratepayers. With that in mind, I'd like to move the second option. I personally really want my dogs licensed and would voluntarily go in to get the tags. So I think that's a good option. So I'd like to move the recommendation with option 2.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that? Mark, are you seconding that? Okay, thank you very much. Council, we can continue with this discussion. We have a mover and a seconder on option number 2, dog licensing supported by the general levy of registration. Every dog with no charge for life of the dog with no annual fee replacement tag subject to a charge. Is there any other questions? Yes, Councillor Vink, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. What about the situation, we're gonna have a freer system here, then you have 3 or 4 dogs always going from a certain property. How will that be handled and possibly not registered? So that's my question. How would that be handled under this system?
Jill, if you could address that, there still will be documentation and there will still be licensing. There'll be a license on the dog, and if it needs to be replaced, it'll be just the modest fee to replace it. I think dog licensing is twofold. If your dog gets off the chain, and if you love your dog, you have a lot better chance of it being returned if they have that license on there. And just another thing I'd like to bring to council's attention too. I know there is discussion sometimes that if you don't own a dog, why do you want a couple of dollars put on your levy to handle animal control? I think we all benefit from animal control, even if we don't have a dog. You know, farmers don't have dogs running around the country. They're not all over the town. They're not off the leash. Even non-dog owners benefit from having an animal control as well. So there is credence to that. I won't say any more on that. There was another option here I kind of like, but I'm not going to interfere with the motion on the floor. Is there any further discussions on Councillor Cal's motion and Councillor McGill seconding that motion? Any further discussion? I'll call the question then. Just a bit of a pause if someone has a late question here. I'll call it. All in favor, put up your hand, please. Okay, all opposed? Carried. Okay, administration. We have the fence bylaw before us, Jill. This should go pretty smooth. There was an inclusion of electric fences in this, and I believe the inclusion was that the CSA standard is included in the draft and it is acceptable. Did you wish to speak to that?
Through you, Mayor. So this is deferred from the previous meeting. Staff have already presented their report, but as you noted, we just identified one of the questions that was raised had to do with electric fences. So we, if council's interested in adjusting what the current standard is, because we didn't propose anything different than what is currently in the fence bylaw with respect to electric fences. But if you wanted to change it, then putting it just towards what the CSA standard is an option. That's it.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mark, I figured you'd have a question on that because you brought that CSA standard up. Go ahead, Councillor McGill.
I'd rather simplify it even more. I'd rather just say that I have electric fences that are able to contain the livestock. That would be my, I would make that motion with that change.
I'm not sure you want safe electric fences. You sure you don't want that CSA standard in that? It's you know, we want to. Are you opening yourself to some issues of liability if you don't have some parameters of quality and control?
Well, if the fence is good enough to contain the livestock, that's all that's important to me. I'm afraid that I don't want to see us bringing in something that will make a lot of fences and a lot of landowners make them doing something that's illegal, even though their cattle aren't getting out.
Yeah, Councillor Scholdice, you have a question? Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I agree with Councillor McGill's wording on it, and if he's seconding it, or sorry, if he's making the motion, I'll second it.
Okay, that's fine. All right. Councillor Vink, would you like to speak to the subject?
Yes, Mayor Allen. Yeah, I'm just going by, there's a lot of reading there, but I remember at one point it said that there had to be a sign for electric fence every, I believe it was 49 feet. I can't find it yet. And so I think that's a little bit of overkill every 49 feet because what happens after a year or two, signs fall down and that sort of thing. And so I don't believe that you should have to have that in every 49 feet. Maybe one sign on a road would suffice.
Yep. Okay. Council, any other concerns regarding this issue? Yes, Jill, go ahead. Give us some direction.
Yeah, so this would be a change that's being put forward through this motion to what we currently have. And I'm not 100% sure how we could enforce that in terms of how are you gauging that?
Yeah. Yes, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Well, we're putting in a fine. If people's cattle get out, they're subject to, what is it, a $500 fine? So I guess if their cattle are habitually, or their livestock are habitually getting out, they're subject, that would mean that they were breaking this bylaw and they could potentially be fined.
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none. I will, no amendments to the motion. No friendly amendments to the motion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? Motion is defeated. Council, would someone else like to entertain another motion with respect to the parameters? And I think the focus will be on the electric fence.
Mayor Mayhew, I will move option 2.
Okay. Okay. All right.
I'll second
Is there a
it.
seconder for that? Councillor Kell, you're seconding that? Thank you. I saw your head nod there. All right, discussion. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? Motion is carried. And that should be enforceable with some standards to refer to. All right. Moving on, we are going to go into finance. Kristen, if you can walk us through the credit card consideration, please. And you're muted.
I'm mute, sorry, sure can. So council will recall that we have implemented Booking, or we're working on implementing that, which is an online registration software. So what we'd like to be able to do is have them be able to pay with their credit card through this system as well. So when I crunched the numbers, it looks like it would be about 14, like up to 2,000, maybe 2,500 if the transactions increase. That could be covered by the general levy. Visa and MasterCard limit what we're allowed to charge a service charge on. So we can't just pass that cost directly onto the customer without increasing the overall fee, which we could do in the fees and services bylaw. But because the charge is based on a percentage of the transaction amount, the recreation transactions individually are fairly small. So that's why the charge is fairly minimal, but when we get into water and property tax payments, those individual payments are much, much larger. So in that case, I'm recommending a 2% charge if the customer chooses to go ahead and pay these their water or property tax using a credit card.
Okay. Yes, Councillor Cal.
Move the recommendation.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Councillor Scholdice, thank you very much. Questions to council? Seeing none. Kristen, on that recommendation, you have be subject to a 2% service. The word fee is missing off that, but I'm sure you'll catch that in the bylaw.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, that's good, as long as it's included in that. Any other questions? I'll call the vote. All in favor of the recommendation by Cowell and Scholdice? Carried. Thanks very much, Kristen. Greg, you've got some business before you here. Operation Vision Zero.
Thanks, Mayor Allen. This is a report that was requested by council. It is an information report. I think you heard tonight from the county engineer with regards to his thoughts on Vision Zero. I think it was pretty clear that, if you want to call it, the older view is that, the responsibility of the safety on roadways is just with the driver. Vision Zero is a collaborative approach between the road authority, which is the municipality, drivers, and enforcement and the OPP. I have provided some costing associated with what other municipalities, specifically Middlesex Center, has spent on their particular program. And as I said before, this would be a collaborated effort with drivers, brings in engineering, education, and enforcement. That's the basis of this information report.
Okay. Thank you, Greg. Council, any questions through the chair to Greg on Vision Zero and the recommendations to council? Yes, Councillor Cowell, go ahead, please.
It's one of the things that I think we have used in some, I know I've used it in some of my decision-making processes, and I'd like to see a policy come forward where staff also actually uses their principles in their decision-making processes when it comes to the roads. And I think an example of that would even be the parking spots that we might deal with after this meeting. And with that policy, some costing associated with it. I would leave that up to the staff to see if that's something that needs to be considered in the 2022 budget. But for now, I'd like to see what a policy might look like and have some feedback on it, that from through the chair to Mr. Storms.
Okay, thank you. If we could have a report back with the policy, how it's implemented, and potential costs, I think are important to have in that request for staff assistance on this. Is there a second to that motion? Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Bartlett, I see your hand up. Doug, thank you. Okay, recommendation is going to staff to come back and give us a report on Vision Zero and how Southwest Middlesex can implement it and the potential costs associated with it. Any further questions to our operations manager? Seeing none, all those in favor of the recommendation, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, passed. All opposed? Carried. Thank you, Greg, very much. Greg, Glencoe Downtown Improvement, if you'd like to take a swing at that. Yeah, Greg, are you with us?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Allen. I'll take council back a little bit with this one. Council approved the installation of the new lights in the Glencoe downtown as part of the 2020 capital budget. As part of the project, staff met to review the condition of the sidewalk, trees, and decorative bricks in the downtown area. When I speak of the downtown area, I'm talking between McCrae and Slime Street on both sides of the street. We do have linden and honey locust trees that are located in the downtown. Some of these honey locusts and some of the other trees are located outside of that particular 2 blocks, but in our review, most all the trees that are in the downtown are creating issues for the sidewalk. We have experienced many cases of people falling in the downtown. As recent as about 10 days ago, where we had an older lady fall and in the downtown area. So, you know, it's pretty clear that we do have a public safety issue associated with sort of clean foot travel from where people park up to the curb and then down through the sidewalks. So I have provided some pictures with regards to, and I'm pretty sure everybody has been downtown to have a look. You know, we do receive complaints with regards to the trees, especially this one, which is blocking. The picture I've included is just the BMO Bank, where the actual tree is blocking the sign of the bank and is creating somewhat of a problem for people walking. My second picture certainly is tree roots that are protruding through the bricks and into the sidewalk. I've also provided a little bit of information with regards to the old poles and the bases. The old poles will be removed shortly. The bases need to be cut down below the surface, and that is part of the project. And then the new pole bases, we will, you know, what I'm recommending is that the decorative bricks be removed and that particular gap to the curb be covered with asphalt, which will make everything flush on the surface itself. And I have provided a picture of another municipality in a similar situation that they've done, adding asphalt between the curb and the sidewalk, which I thought would give people a decent look at what it would look like when we were done. General comments are, obviously, if we had enough money, the ideal thing would be to rip everything apart downtown and replace it with all new stuff. That's not possible at this particular point. So this is a balanced approach to trying to get some sense of order in the downtown in Glencoe. So my recommendation with regards to this is that council approves the removal of all downtown trees from McCrae to Glendon, and that council approves the removal of the decorative bricks located from McCrae to Slime Streets, and that the area be replaced with asphalt. I have included in the original cost of the installation of the new lights, money for the asphalt, the grunt work or the removal of bricks, and the preparation of the base would be done by public works staff. So that is my report.
Okay. Thank you, Greg. I'm sure there'll be questions from council. Council, please direct your questions to the chair, to Greg. Yes, Councilor Vink, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. To Greg. So what you're saying is this cost to do this work is part of the $352,995.
Through you, Mayor Allen. Yes, yep. It was part of that. I mean, the cost that was put in the budget was to accommodate the application of the asphalt, and I would say 90% of the other work would be done by public works staff. So that would, you know, just be funded through our operations budget.
Okay. Any follow-ups, Martin? Is that okay? You've got a clear understanding of that?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Council, continue on with questions. Yes, Councillor Cowell, go ahead.
We've heard from the ratepayers and the business owners their concern with the interlocking brick surface. So I think it's safe to say that at this point, it's time that it be refreshed. With that in mind, I hate cutting down a tree. ever. So if I'm supporting this, I'd really love to see staff come back with a report. I recognize that the plan is to get this done now and to use the asphalt company that is going to be continuing the work on the county to also do this work. So I think that I would love to see a report come back from staff around budget time on replacement of some natural features downtown, whether it be boxes that have trees in them. I know that Mr. Storms and I discussed that because I was hesitant to be supportive of cutting trees down, but I think alternatives can be seen, affordable alternatives can be seen. So I'd like to see those alternatives come back at budget time. I don't want us to have a desolate streetscape with lacking any type of personality that we've come to know. So with that in mind, I would be supportive of the recommendation, but add the cravat that something come back to us in the form of downtown beautification with budget at budget time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cal, is that a motion you're making?
Yes,
okay.
I'll make
Okay,
that motion.
thank you. I'll ask for a second and I'll continue questioning. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Wilkins. Council, continuing on with discussion on this removal of brick, replacement with asphalt, abandoning the trees at this time because of some redundancy and trip hazards. Any other questions? Yes, Councillor or Deputy Mayor Wilkins.
Mayor Mayhew, I'm not going to take up much time, but I agree with Councillor Cowell. I would hate to see the trees removed and not replaced with something, whether it's large containers or there's different things that can be used. Lucan comes to mind, Dutton comes to mind when you talk about downtown beautification. So as long as Greg comes back with us with some ideas at budget time, I would support it, and I second it.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's going to be a phased project. You know we have to do some critical things with infrastructure, and then we can grow from there. Council, any other questions? Yes, Councillor Vink, quickly. Yep.
Yes, I just want to point out, Mayor Allen, that we also have other downtowns as well. So when you start elaborating on the recommendation, we have to talk about other situations as well.
I think Council's been attuned to that, Councillor Vink, and so is the mayor, and there'll be other things coming for those other municipalities. If it makes Council feel any better, I was concerned with the recommendation and how it would be accepted by the community. I called on 8 businesses yesterday. I called on more, but I could only find 8 property owners. 6 had no objection to the tree removal and asphalt replacement. They've witnessed the trip hazards and approved of the proposed format. However, the majority, as Councillor Cowell indicated, would like to, if the trees are taken away, they would like something of a natural thing put back. That was 6 of 8 people. 1 had no opinion, and 1 was against the tree removal because it would diminish the cooling of her property. So there was, by and large, it was just a poll, but it was in a 2-block area, and there were many empty buildings in that 2-block area, so it was fairly intense. So from that old core, I call it the old core from McRae to Symes, there were the majority of people were in favor of the proposal that the operation managers put before you. They too indicated they hate to cut down trees, as Councillor Cowell did, but they could see that clean drinking water is important and safety is important. Any other questions? Last call. I'll call the question. All in favor of the recommendation that's put before us? Passed unanimously. Greg, thank you very much for that. Greg, would you like to?
You just did a motion to extend, I believe.
Okay. Yep, it is 10 o'clock. Someone entertain that? Councillor Vink, thank you very much. Seconded by Councillor Bartlett.
It's 22 hours.
All in favor of extending the meeting past curfew? All opposed? Motion's carried by 1 vote. we will, Greg, if you can expedite this, is an extremely important report, and I enjoyed the engineering documents on that immensely. Greg, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, and thank you, Mayor Allen, and through you. This particular staff report deals with the painting of lines in the downtowns. It was part of a approved capital project. County has provided, and they are the approval authority on this, has provided the actual drawings associated with where those spots would be located if they were changed or added. I will just say that their particular response is reflective of providing safe sight lines from all the cross streets. So in the end, I mean, obviously there would be less parking spots in the downtowns just based on that. But the overall environment would be much safer for people coming out from those side streets. And I think if everybody is aware when you leave the township office and you come out at McKellar or that type of thing, it can be a challenge. So this is in place. The drawings are provided. If we were to proceed with this work, probably wouldn't happen. Certainly in Glencoe wouldn't happen until we finalize the water line situation there. But the work could, I've asked the county for pricing with regards to this work, and they could provide us with that service. So I don't think there's a problem with the contractor or the service itself. It's just the wish of council moving forward with this staff report.
Okay, thank you. Questions from council regarding the parking situation, the parking lines? Yes, Deputy Mayor Wilkins, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. So this morning, the CAO, myself and Greg had the pleasure of talking with the clerk from West Elgin, and the subject came up about the parking spaces that they had just created on their newly reconstructed main street of Rodney. You may know about it. They're also installing the sites for electric cars as well. So anyway, we did ask the question if they had been well received, and we were told they had been very well received. Also during that conversation, it did come up about the sight lines in Glencoe and how difficult it is to pull up to most corners on the main street and not be able to see what's coming, toward you. So I just wanted to share that. I also wanted to say that, as part of Vision Zero, this would be one step to ensure that we are committed to community safety. I think that's our intention as a council. And so I did ask for this report and for the money to be put into budget for this. And of course, I do support it. I don't care how it's handled, but I'd like to see us move forward on it. Thank you, Mayor Mayhew.
Thank you very much. Yes, sightlines are a problem, and council, we all agree, I'm sure, that there are more pickup trucks and SUVs on the road today than sedans. And because of the height of that, it even makes it more difficult to see when you haven't got a proper layout of parking spots. Any other comments? We have a mover and a seconder for this. I'll call the question. All in favor of the parking report, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Carried unanimously. Thank you very much, council. Bulk water station. I hear we have problems, Greg.
Yeah. I'll have to go through this one. This one's a little bit more complicated than the previous reports.
Can I interrupt for just a moment? To the last one. So the mover, I'm assuming, was the deputy mayor.
Okay. Yeah.
Just did we have a seconder? I missed that. I apologize.
Okay. I thought, it was Mike. Yeah.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Apologies.
No problem. Nope, I called it. Maybe I better slow down here. We've got our extension. We'll try to get to bed as soon as we can. But thank you, Deputy Mayor Wilkins and Mike. That's appreciated. Greg, I'm sorry to cut you off there. We'll get back to the bulk water station. We have an issue there.
Yeah, no problem. In July, we experienced some issues with the bulk water station at the Glencoe Tower. We have had two units that are available, so that if we had a problem with one unit, we just insert the second unit and then get the first unit repaired. Now, that has occurred a number of times, not since I've been here, but before that. And this is the first time that I've had to deal with this, because we did have an issue with the number one unit. We took the unit out, put the spare in, which is in there right now. And in the process of trying to get the original unit repaired, we're notified by the vendor that these type of units are no longer available and there's no parts to repair our unit. So we have a functional unit that's in place right now that we can't get parts for. Hopefully it doesn't break down. Our first unit is not repairable, so it's just sitting there and we don't have a vendor to repair it. The current system that we have in place operates with the card system, where and that's just this unit. We also have another bulk water station out in Pratt Siding, but it operates a little different than this one. It operates by a key situation. So but this particular bulk water station uses purchase cards. They purchase cards from the municipal office with a certain water value on them. The cards are inserted into the unit and water is dispensed. All the reconciliation that's done with regards to that unit and how much water it puts out is a combination of public works staff going over and plugging into the system, gathering the data, taking that data back to the office, and then it's reconciled at the office where they have to download all that data. At times it's difficult because if the unit is working properly, everything's fine. But even in this particular case, we lost a fair bit of data associated with, what we dispensed from the station itself. I look at this as kind of an emergency in our particular area, simply because it's extremely important to the farm operators and the contractors in our community. When this isn't working, we just get inundated with phone calls, and it's a very busy place for the dispensing of water itself. So I had to go through a process to try to find something not only that would work in our tower itself, but technically would reduce the need for regular maintenance and for public works staff, and to try to get a fully automated unit in there that could communicate directly with the office, and that offered all kinds of different methods of payment. And it was very difficult, but I ended up through our old vendor getting a new company that I could deal with. We had several sessions online, as well as some technical sessions at the site itself, and it was satisfied that this company could provide us with a unit that not only offered us many different ways that we could that people had the opportunity to buy water from us, but it was also a unit that could be interfaced with the necessary control valves and meters, etc., that we have at the tower. So it is a system that offers seamless communication, and it does have software that needs to be installed at the office, and will take a little bit to get installed itself, and it will take some work between the finance team and the public works team. Sale of water to users in the municipality accounts, we don't make a lot of money off this. We basically cover our cost of providing water, plus there is a small incentive in there to provide money to the capital budget moving forward for replacement of a unit like this. So I was quite satisfied with this particular unit, and the fact that we could get this put in, the fact that we could have a system that offered people an opportunity that just put a credit card in it, and you could dispense water that way, or you could use PIN numbers, or you could buy a certain amount of water from us moving forward, with a PIN number, and it would be much easier. And the other thing that was a good thing for me was that it really took all the maintenance and the work that has to go on with the existing system that we have in place there. So I am bringing a recommendation tonight for single sourcing. primarily because this is a very technical project. It's one that needs to run for many years, and it needs to be seamless, and it needs to be a system that can communicate directly with us at the office, because we need to reconcile this type of thing, because water is a situation where it's basically user pay. So the other thing is, this is going to take 2 or 3 months, so I do consider this to be something that's a real requirement for the farmers and for the contracting community in Southwest Middlesex. So I am bringing this recommendation to council tonight for the replacement of the bulk water station, and that the purchase be single source through SCG process at a cost of $28,000, and that this purchase be funded by the water reserve. So I am available for questions.
Thank you. Through the chair to Greg, council. Any questions? Yes, Martin, go ahead, Councillor Vink.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. To Greg, is there only one company that can provide this?
Yes, Greg found it necessary to single source it. Greg, you can expand if you wish.
Yeah, I'm sure that there would be other companies in Canada that may be able to provide this in some form. The key for us was not only the provision of the unit itself, but it was also the long-term upkeep of the unit, the ability to get it serviced, and the ability to get parts if there are issues associated with this. So it was an item that, to be honest, if I was to develop the specs for this unit and put that on the market, I don't think we could get this price. I think what we have in front of us is probably the most efficient way to get this done. And I don't really want to get into talking about the procurement policy right now, but this is one occasion where this probably would cost us more money if we did not single source this.
Okay. Councillor Scholdice, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I'd just like to say that I really don't like the statement, this would probably cost us more money. Why are we not tendering it to find out?
Jill, you can answer that, the tendering process. And
sure. Well, I can speak to what I think Greg has touched on already. This is something that is new, that's come up during the course of the year, and it needs to be put in place so that we can support those that use our bulk water station, which are a lot of people. So relatively new information to us that the existing system really isn't going to be supported. So as Greg said, this is the type of situation where you as council have the authority to single source a particular product. I can speak to the procurement policy more so if you would like, but if there were increased thresholds to what it is that staff would do, we would probably just go to that particular supplier to provide that. And that within this threshold would not be an uncommon thing for most municipal staff to be able to undertake. They would still, in an emergency position, still be able to come to council as well for those situations, but within your operating budget, you could have that staff making that decision if council were to update the procedure bylaw as well.
okay, further questions? Greg, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Allen, with regards to Councillor Scholdice's comment. It's pretty straightforward. Like when you go to tender on a project like this, it will end up costing you anywhere from 8 to 12% just to get the specifications done for something like this.
Yeah.
So, that's pretty simple. That's not, that's why I made that statement, that if this goes to tender, the only way it can go to tender is that every specification associated with this particular unit would have to be designed and put on the market, and it wouldn't be done by me. This would be done by an outside group, outside engineer, and they would charge us anywhere from 8 to 12% for that document. Mm-hmm. And that would be reflective in the price that we get back, because you have to pay that no matter what. So,
yeah. Okay. Any further questions? Yes, Councillor McGill, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I like the credit card option. I know back when the office was closed. I had one call about somebody who couldn't get in the office to get their water card updated. Now, as long as you got a credit card, you can get water. So that's an improvement.
Thank you. You had one. I can inform council that I've had probably a half a dozen, 6 at a minimum, that require water in urgent need. More so in the spring than now. Any further questions? Jill, we need a mover and a seconder for this. Anybody entertain the recommendation of our operations manager to single source this with the confidence in administration's decision? Someone make a motion. Councillor Bartlett, a seconder for that motion, please. Councillor McGill. All right, we have a mover and a seconder. Last call for questions. All in favor of the replacement of the bulk water dispensing unit, please raise your hand. 6. All opposed? One against. Okay, thank you. Noted. Motion's passed. Thank you, Greg. I think you're off the hook now, Greg.
Thank you, Mary Ellen.
Okay, thanks. Notice of motion. Mark, you have 2 here. Would you like to speak to council about these?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. The first one has kind of been resolved. I did not like the fact that people couldn't turn their batteries in at the municipal office anymore. I didn't feel they would go all the way to Manning Drive, but talking to Jill, since I put this notice of motion in, I found out that as of July 2020, battery producers are responsible for collecting, reusing, refurbishing, or recycling their batteries when consumers discard them. So it's producer responsibility. I think that's Ontario law change. And there's at least 4 places fairly local where you can take your batteries. Home Hardware in Newberry. You just take them to the customer service counter there. Rona in Dutton, Staples in Strathroy, Rona in Strathroy. And staff is going to put this information in our newsletter and display it in the municipal office and put it on social media. So that should resolve that problem to my satisfaction. As for the second one, could we table the second notice of motion till the next meeting?
Yes, if
It's
that's
already
your wish.
past 10 o'clock.
Yep, I think that's a good idea, Mark, and yeah, even a further examination of that notice of motion, you'll have time to discuss it if you require more information on it. Just have the record note that the notice of motion of Councillor McGill, 9B, be tabled to the next meeting. And number 10 is correspondence and petitions. I don't believe there's any. Jill, I don't have any unfinished business here. No. New business, 5I on our correspondence. Councillor Cal, you wish that being taken out. Would you like to speak to that?
I just thought it was really, really well done, and they provide a lot of research about the affordability of internet and studies from Ryerson University. So I would like to support the correspondence.
Okay. Charge of internet, yes. Councillor Vink, will you second that?
Yes, I will. I was going to bring that up as well, so.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Moved by Cal, seconded by Vink. Discussion, council, on this? That we support Chatham's resolution for cheap internet. I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. No addendum items, no other business. County Council and conference updates. I know many of councilors went to AMO. I share Councillor McGill's thought he gave to me that there's something lacking on a virtual conference. Both of us enjoyed going through the exhibits and talking to the exhibitors and finding out product knowledge and talking to the various ministries with their booths and crown corporations. We missed that, but hopefully we will be able to return to a real live conference at some point. Any further conference updates? Anyone's head? Moving on, announcements.
Oh, Mayor Mayhew,
Yep.
Deputy Mayor just raised her hand.
I just wanted to comment that I thought we had a very successful delegation with the Minister of Infrastructure. We were all present. No, you're right, Councillor McGill, you did have some technical issues getting on, but I'd like to just thank Jill for her involvement and contributions, and to each of you that spoke along with myself. So thank you very much. We have now realized that those delegations do benefit us in the way of dollars coming to our community. And I think it's important for us to continue with those. So thank you for everybody that supports that and came to the meeting. Thank you. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much. Continue on, Council. Any announcements from your wards? Yes, Councillor McGill, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. If I could go back to the delegations, I believe there was one more delegation that Jill was in on with some other CAOs regarding drainage and railroads. So I know our staff has put a lot of time into that. It can be a little frustrating at times, but hopefully we get some resolution on that issue soon, because the railroads are slowing up drainage in various municipalities all over Ontario.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's true. Thank you. Moving on, one more time, announcements. Council, I just perhaps would like to say that we miss Councillor Crothers very much. As you know, he just as of a day or two ago, he was in University Hospital getting medical treatment. We certainly wish him well in his recovery and peace of mind for his family as well. His daughter-in-law did reach out to me because Ian was very concerned about not fulfilling his municipal responsibilities at this time. And I assured the family and Jill as well that we are more concerned about his well-being, that he's getting good medical treatment, that they find out a diagnosis and Ian gets a treatment and comes back to council. We're looking forward to that. But they did request some information from the municipality as to what were the consequences, and nothing really has to be done right away at all. But once Ian has been absent for 3 months, council would need to give approval for an extension beyond that 3-month absent period. And this is found in section 259 of the Municipal Act. You know, based on the communications, by the end of December, if Ian is not back, council will have to make that decision. But I just want to reflect his responsibility, his feelings of responsibility, that he wishes he was with us. He wishes he was representing Ward 2 and is concerned about those municipalities. And we certainly wish him the best on his return. And I think many of us no doubt have been in contact with the family, but the communication, the preferred communication I have is text messaging to his daughter-in-law, and we've chatted back every several days. Jill, there's no closed session. Okay, we have the bylaws. There's 13 bylaws before us. I think we can do this in one swoop. That bylaw 2170 received first and second reading. That bylaw 2161 received third and final reading. And that the other 11 bylaws received first, second, and third reading. Will someone move that? Councillor Scholdice and seconded by Councillor Vink.
Are we just doing first, second, and third first?
We're doing all in three swoops. I identified the bylaw that we're giving first and second reading to, 2170, first and second reading. That bylaw 2161 received third and final reading, and that bylaws 2162 to 2164 and bylaw 2169 and bylaw 2171 and bylaw 2174 received first, second, third, and final reading.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor Allen, we can't do the Arrowwood one because that was delayed.
Oh, that's correct. Okay, we're going to take that out. That is on hold. What number is that? That is
16F.
16F. Okay. We'll just put with the exclusion of 16F to be tabled to the next meeting. Thank you, Martin, for that. I'll call the question. All in favor? Yeah. And the chair's noted, or the secretary's noted that exception. All opposed?
Yeah, sorry, and that was Councillor Scholdice and Councillor Vink to move it and second it, correct?
Yep, that is correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Chair, thanks all the councillors and the staff that were present and people from our electorate and our professional planners and consultants. Could enjoy the rest of the evening. The meeting adjourns at 10:27. Thank you very much for working overtime.
Good night. Thank you.